Good morning, everyone. We're glad to have you here this morning. My name is Mike Terry. I'd like to welcome you to this regular monthly meeting of the Planning Commission. The Cobb County Planning Commission is an advisory board appointed by the Board of Commissioners. It's our job to investigate every zoning request and every land use permit that comes to the county. And so we're going to discuss those here today. The Board of Commissioners, though, will have the final decision on all of these cases, and they will hear these cases in about 2 weeks on November the 15th. So if you're here for one of these cases today, you will need to come back on the 15th for the Board of Commissioners hearing. It's our custom to invite various members of the clergy to come and address us with comments or a prayer as they choose. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce to you Captain Chris Powell. Chris, if you want to come on up. Chris, as you can tell from his uniform, I told him this morning he's easy to find in this crowd because of his Salvation Army uniform, but we're glad to have him here this morning. When Captain Powell concludes his comments, we'll ask our officer of the day, Officer Ott from Cobb County Police Department, to come forward and lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. When you see him come forward, please stand as you're able while we have the pledge. Captain?
All right, would you bow your heads with me? Father, as we come together in this meeting to hear the different various concerns here in this community, Father, we ask that you wrap your hands around this commission as they hear things and that we do things in your way, Father. We thank you for all those that have come here that are concerned about what goes on in our community. We lift each and every one up here, Father, and bring you into our presence. For it's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Captain. Okay, first on the agenda this morning is always our consent agenda. These are cases that this Planning Commission and the zoning staff have fully investigated and for which there is no known opposition. We do believe that these cases belong on the consent agenda. The zoning administrator, Mr. John Peterson, this is John raising his hand to my left, will read these cases into the record, and he will ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to or is in opposition to one of those cases. If there is, we may elect to pull it from the consent agenda, in which case we would hear it in its regular numerical sequence. Next, we will hear the cases that were either held or continued from a previous hearing. And lastly, we will hear all of our regular cases, again, in their regular numerical sequence. Applicants will be asked to come forward and identify themselves and be sworn in before they present their case. Then the opposition likewise will be asked to do the same. When a case number is called by Mr. Peterson, all those wishing to address the board will need to present themselves to our officer of the day, and that's Jason Campbell. Jason, you want to raise your hand? Jason's on the front row. He'll take care of swearing in. He'll also ask you to sign his book. That just assures that we get the correct spelling of everyone's name, so we appreciate it if you would do that. Now, most importantly, everyone that speaks today will have 10 minutes to present their case. That's 10 minutes collectively, not 10 minutes per person. We need to do that to move quickly through because we always have lots of cases to hear. So please be mindful of that, mindful of the length of your comments. Also be aware that that is not a time for rebuttal. So you make your case to us. We may invite you to come back up to clarify a point or to answer some questions, but that's how our process will go. Mr. Peterson, do you have any other directions for us this morning?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is one case on today's printed agenda which has been withdrawn and will not be heard today. As rezoning case Z100 TPA Acquisitions LLC. That case has been withdrawn and will not be heard today. Additionally, there are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued and will not be heard today. First case is rezone case Z18 Pope and Land Enterprises Incorporated. That case was continued by the staff until the December hearing date. So Z18 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z84, James C. Lane Jr. That case was continued by the staff until the December 6, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z84 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z86, Winsong Properties LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the December 6, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z86 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z93, Kaplan Morgan Vinings Development LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the December 6, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z93 will not be heard today. Land Use Permit 29, SM Living LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the December 6, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 29 will not be heard today. LUP 30, SM Living LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the December 6, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 30 will not be heard today. LUP 31, SM Living LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the December 6, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 31 will not be heard today. LUP 32, SM Living LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the December 6, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 32 will not be heard today. LUP 33, SM Living LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the December 6, 2016 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 33 will not be heard today. Mr. Chairman of the Board, there is one case on today's agenda in which the applicant is asking it to be continued. The applicant is here for rezoning case Z97 Royal Residential Incorporated, and the applicant is asking this case to be continued to your December hearing date.
Okay, I believe Z97 belongs to Ms. Trombetti. Ms. Trombetti, you have any explanation or comments you want to make on that one?
I don't have any explanation, but I think that we're missing some information that will be helpful for them to gather over the next month. The site plan needs to address the cemetery in a different way, and we need a stipulation letter and some other things. So I think a continuance is worthwhile, and I'd like to make a motion that we continue Z97 until the December hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add Z97 to be continued. We have a second, right? Okay, any other comments? Call for the vote. Okay, so we will not hear Z97 at this time. What else, John?
Yes, sir. I would like to ask people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please put the volume on mute. The ringing doesn't interfere with the broadcast and presentation, so if you have a cell phone, please put it on mute. For informational purposes, Georgia law states that opponents of zoning matters who, within the last 2 years immediately prior, have made campaign contributions totaling $250 or more to a local government official who will consider this zoning matter, shall file a disclosure with the local government. Applicants complete this same form as part of the zoning application package. More information about this is located on the table at the back of the room. Mr. Chairman of the Board, there are requests for early head counts. Can I get a show of people here who are opposed to rezoning case Z91, Pollock Shores Development LLC? Please raise your hands.
Okay, keep them up. We'll get a count, so keep them up until we're through with the count, please.
Let the record show there are 14 people here in opposition to rezoning case Z91. Can I also get a show of people here who are opposed to rezoning case Z101, Providence Homes LLC? Please raise your hands. Let the record show there are 23 people here opposed to rezoning case Z101. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda. Cobb County Planning Commission zoning hearing consent agenda for November 1st, 2016. Rezoning case Z94, JLM Investment Group. Request rezoning from R20 to RA5 for the purpose of a subdivision in land lot 70 of the 1st District. The property is located on the east side of Woodlawn Drive, south of Lower Roswell Road. Staff recommends approval to the R5 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on October 18, 2016, with the district commission approving minor modifications. Variances as listed in the zoning comments. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. James A. Bally dated October 26, 2016, with attachment A submitted by Mr. Bally on October 31st, 2016. Fire Department comments and recommendations. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Department of Transportation comments and recommendations, and the owner developer to enter into a development agreement pursuant to OCGA 367113 for the dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed? Rezone case Z94. Mr. Chairman, there is one person opposed.
Can I make a suggestion to the one person that raised your hand? Would you get with Mr. Valley, who's right behind you there? And Mr. Valley, would you mind taking this lady out back and y'all discuss it? If we still need to pull the case and hear it, we'll be glad to. It may be something simple, and we'd like to give you a chance to resolve that. So we'd appreciate that. Thank you. Go ahead, John.
We'll put that one on hold right now. Rezoning case Z96, Cobb County Board of Commissioners request rezoning from NS to NRC for the purpose of retail, office, and restaurant in land lot 14 of the 17th District. The property is located at the southwest intersection of Austell Road and Wanda Circle, north of Wendy Hill Road. Staff recommends approval to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Property is to be approved as built, accounting for its current situation regarding in regards to lot size, setbacks, floor area ratio, impervious surface, and parking. Future changes, additions to the property, including building architecture, to be approved by the district commissioner. Fire department comments and recommendations, water and sewer division comments and recommendations, stormwater management division comments and recommendations, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Prohibited uses include light automotive repair, bail bonds, check cashing, or businesses that have or sell alcoholic beverages. No outdoor storage or display of merchandise, and the applicant or owner to install fencing along the south and west property lines. Fencing shall not be required if adjoining property owners enter into a cross-access, cross-park easement, or if the property is assembled with adjoining property for redevelopment. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z96? 3 people opposed, Mr. Chairman, so we'll pull that one off to you.
Okay, we need to pull that one off. We'll hear that one in its regular sequence.
Rezoning case Z98, Showcase Real Estate Development LLC. Request rezoning from R20 to R15 LLC for the purpose of a subdivision in land lot 265 of the 16th District. The property is located on the east side of Steinhauer Road and on the north side of Pete Shaw Road. Staff recommends approval to the R15 OSC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on October 12, 2016, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Planning division comments. Letter of agreeable conditions from Black Eagle Strategies LLC dated October 26, 2016. Fire department comments and recommendations. Water and sewer division comments and recommendations. Stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. And the owner developer to enter into a development agreement pursuant to OCGA 367113 for dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z98? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z99, CH Realty 6R, Atlanta Town Park LLC. Request rezoning from UVC to UVC for the purpose of a stipulation amendment, adding a use in land lots 362 and 363 of the 16th District. The property is located at the northeastern intersection of Chastain Road and George Busby Parkway. Staff recommends approval to the UVC zoning district with stipulation amendments subject to the following conditions. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Rob Hosack dated October 6, 2016, where not otherwise in conflict. Allowance of commercial indoor recreation use for the intended use of the applicant's puzzle escape room. Additional commercial indoor recreation uses to be approved by the district commissioner individually. Fire department comments and recommendations. Water and sewer division comments and recommendations. Stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. All previous zoning stipulations not in conflict with this approval. And site plan received September 1st, 2016 with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z99? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z102, Riverview Associates Limited. Request rezoning from RRC with stipulations to RRC with stipulations for the purpose of a mixed-use development in land lots 976, 977, 1016, and 1017 of the 17th District. The property is located at the northwesterly intersection of Cobb Parkway, US Highway 41, and Paces Mill Road. Staff recommends approval to the RRC zoning district with stipulations, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on September 30th, 2016, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. John Moore dated October 25th, 2016. Fire Department comments and recommendations, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z102? We have 2 opposed to that one, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that's kind of a surprise. I thought we had heard from everyone there. Would you mind doing a favor for me? Would you mind getting with Mr. Moore? John, will you want to stand back there, please, sir? Getting with Mr. Moore and see if these are issues that can be resolved. If not, we'll be glad to pull it and hear the case. I need you to do that first for me, if you would, please. John, can you go to the back and discuss it with these folks, please? We'll see how that works out. We'll put it on hold for now, John.
Yes, sir.
Peterson, okay.
Moving into land use permits on the consent agenda, LUP 25, Willie Abernathy requests a land use permit renewal for the purpose of allowing 2 houses on 1 lot in land lot 42 of the 18th district. The property is located on the north side of Lee Road and on the west side of Veteran Memorial Highway. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Site plan submitted to the zoning division on July 22nd, 2016. For this applicant or current family use only. If the property is sold to another party or the applicant or the family cease use of the second house, then the second house shall be converted to a storage building. Second house not to be used as a rental unit. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. And Fire Department comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to land use permit number 25? Let the record show there's no one opposed. LUP 34, Sarah Wells requests a land use permit renewal for the purpose of allowing more related adults than permitted by the code in land lot 705 of the 19th district. The property is located on the south side of Pear Road, east of Austell Road. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Maximum of 5 related adults, no on-street parking, no outside storage around the building, and no commercial activity or yard sales, except as allowed by county code. Is the applicant present? Oh, okay. Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 34? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And moving into special land use permits on the consent agenda, SLEP 15, CW Matthews Contracting Company Incorporated, request a special land use permit for the purpose of an existing asphalt batch plant in land lot 964 of the 17th district. The property is located on the west side of South Atlanta Road and on the north side of the Chattahoochee River. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on August 30th, 2016, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications, variances as referenced in zoning comments, and stormwater management division comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to SLEP 15? Let the record show no one opposed, and that completes the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman and Board.
Okay, Mr. Bally, were you and the young lady that had a question, were you able to resolve that issue?
No.
No, okay, so we'll pull that one and we'll hear that case. That was Z94.
Z94.
Okay, we'll hear that one in its regular sequence. The other group is still meeting out back. Debbie, can we go ahead and vote on the ones we have and move forward? Or
Yes.
do we need to wait on them? We can, okay. So the consent agenda as presented, the ones that we know had no opposition will stay on the consent agenda. We'll pull Z94. We'll wait to hear on Z102. Entertain. I'm sorry. Yes, and 96, I beg your pardon.
Mr. Chairman.
And I have one that I can add to the consent agenda.
Okay, why don't you do that first then?
Okay, that would be Z85, if you want to read that in, John.
Yes. Rezoning case Z85, Paradise Group LLC, request rezoning from HI to GC for the purpose of retail in land lot 789 of the 19th district. The property is located on the north side of the east-west connector and on the southeast side of Powder Springs Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z85? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Okay, and I'd like to add a few stipulations to it.
Why don't you go ahead, y'all?
One is, and the applicants agreed to this, deletion to CRC, subject to all of the following: all staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Site plan received October 28th, 2016. Letter of stipulation received from Dave Mattson, October 28th, 2016, not otherwise in conflict with the following stipulations and with the following changes. Strike on item number 1, the last sentence. On item number 3, strike the last sentence. And on item number 9, sub-item C, strike sub-item C. Elevations attached to the letter of stipulation received from Dave Mattson on October 24th, 2016, not otherwise in conflict with the following stipulations. Building to be in substantial conformity to the elevation and renderings provided with the above letters with the following changes. Areas indicated and shown as stucco are to be brick. District Commissioner can approve some accents that are material other than brick, but the non-glass exterior surfaces are to remain predominantly brick. The addition of a brick knee wall to screen shopping carts from view, the wall to be at least as tall as the shopping carts. Okay, then community retail uses only. Landscaping plan to be approved by County Arborist and District Commissioner. The landscape area between the north side of the building and the driveway to be heavy landscaping for the purpose of screening the loading docks and dumpster area. At least one row of landscaping to be at least 6 foot tall at the time of planning. Approve a variance to a minimum of 171 parking spaces. Some of the parking spots on this are not on the property. It's included for zoning application, but are shown on the site plan. The occupancy of the building shall be conditional on at least 171 parking spaces being exclusively available to this site. And then the District Commissioner may approve minor modifications except for those that increase the overall square footage of the building, cause a reduction in the size of an approved buffer, cause a relocation of the structure closer to a property line of an adjacent property that is zoned the same or in a more restrictive designated zoning, increase the height of the building that is adjacent to a property that is zoning the same or a more restrictive designated zoning, change an access location to a different roadway, change that is in conflict with the express stipulations or conditions of zoning, or that require a variance or violates Cobb County ordinance.
That's quite a bit. Let me be sure. Mr. Mattson's okay with all of these stipulations, correct? Okay, he's nodding yes. Okay, so we'll add that one to the consent agenda. Any other comments on the consent agenda? Okay, I entertain a motion then to approve the consent agenda, and I want to run through these again just to be sure we have this. The consent agenda, we're going to pull 94 and hear that case. We're going to pull Z96 and hear that case. Z102 is being discussed in the back. We'll see how that comes out. Z98 remains on. Z99 is okay on the consent. LUP 25, 34, and SLUP 15 all remain on the consent agenda, correct? Yes. Okay. I need a motion then to approve the
And
consent.
then we
agenda.
added Z85.
And I'm sorry, and we added Z85 with the stipulations got read into the record. Anything else? Okay, I need a motion then to approve the consent agenda as presented, and then we'll get to 102 as soon as those folks complete their.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented with the addition of Z85 added to the consent.
Okay, got it. Second from Skip. Any other comments? Okay, call for the vote. Okay, when they come back in, we'll break in and do Z102. We'll see what they've uncovered. Okay, John.
Okay, all
Ready
those
when you are.
folks on consent agenda, your business is done today. Please come back in 2 weeks for the Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. Moving into the continued case agenda.
Okay, John, let me interrupt you, please, if you don't mind. I want to get another announcement. I'm gonna go ahead and make this on the record if I could. Philip Westbrook will be very happy that I'm doing this. From time to time, the county does update its comprehensive plan. We're going through that process right now. That's a very important process for the county. A series of meetings are held for the public, and I want to announce the next one, which will be a public open house Thursday, November the 17th. That'll be at the Cobb County Civic Center. That's on the loop very near downtown. It'll start at 5 p.m. and go until 8. If you're interested in the comprehensive plan, want to suggest changes or see what changes have already been proposed, that's your time to go and do that, and I would encourage you to do so.
Can I add one
Sure.
thing as well? There's also another meeting occurring this Thursday, November 3rd, from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And it's to discuss Mapleton Parkway and Veterans Memorial Highway design guidelines. And the design guidelines help us in zoning give the look and feel that the community would like. So this will be at the Mabel House Arts Center at 5239 Floyd Road Southwest. So that's Thursday, 6:30 to 8 at the Mabel House Arts Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Cole. Okay, John, we ready? Okay, go ahead, please.
Moving into the continued case agenda, rezoning case Z80, First Center Incorporated. Request rezoning from RA6, R15, and OS to RA6 for the purpose of residential in land lots 83 and 84 of the 16th district. The property is located at the southwest intersection of Shalford Road and Jamerson Road, north side of Backwoods Court, and at the eastern terminus of Hart Drive. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z80? Let the record show there's one person opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good morning, Mr. Moore. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Show that RA6 above it. There you go, right there. Thanks. Good morning. Kevin Moore here on behalf of the applicant and owners in this application for rezoning. The applicant is First Center, Inc. This property in total comprises just over 15 acres. And what I want to do, though, is give you a little bit of a history and context for this application, because I think it makes a lot more sense when you see that, and especially as you see the zoning map that's in front of you and on the board with you right now. So I'm going to turn to that. This property is 15 acres in total, and you can see that's the hatched area. You'll also note that approximately about 12 acres, almost exactly 12 acres, is already zoned RA6. This application is to rezone this area here, which is 4 lots of R15, a small piece of office services, which is OS, and then this RA6 piece to RA6 for a total development. This RA6 portion here, which is 12 acres, was approved last year for rezoning by the Board of Commissioners for an active adult community. We worked very closely with Chad's Ridge, which is the subdivision directly across Shalford Road here that's zoned RA6, as well as the Canton Road neighbors, in rezoning and obtaining the approval for that RA6 active adult community here. What the applicant and owner has done, though, is looked at this as moving through their development process and engineering, financing, and economics of how to make this be successful. And in order to ensure its success, the additional 3 acres, which is this, has been added to the plan as a proposal. So really all that's being done is we're adding these 3 acres, but we're keeping the same density on a unit per acre basis. This was approved at 5.8 units per acre, and the proposal in front of you remains at 5.8 units per acre. And we're adding these pieces here, which really will be added as additional open space to the overall community. And I'll get into that in just a minute. But I think it's important to consider why was this approved and why is it such a good proposal from that standpoint. And you have to look at the overall area. And you'll see that as you travel north on Shalford Road here, you'll see the light industrial office services, which is really office warehouse uses, tents, general commercial, CRC commercial, and also GC, CRC, and O&I. So you can see as you approach this intersection of Shallowford Road and Jamerson Road, what you're seeing is encroaching intensity of development of light industrial and commercial uses that are not the type that are very much, that are consistent with a neighborhood such as Chad's Ridge, which is a well-established neighborhood with an identity. And that neighborhood, as it looks and sees what's encroaching towards it at this intersection, we worked with them because this particular piece of property, as you can see, becomes a real test. Is it going to be pressured by the type of commercial and industrial type uses that are not conducive to that neighborhood, or can we do something to establish it as a residential quality active adult community so that once you turn on Shallowford Road, you know that this now is a residential community and you've left the commercial and industrial intensity from this side of Shallowford Road. This neighborhood here is a much older R15 neighborhood that has fallen into some neglect. It's largely rental. And it's hoped that as the quality that can be brought forward here can be built, and not only invigorates and reestablishes Chad's Ridge as a traditional community, but also can help reestablish the values and the upkeep of the homes in this neighborhood behind it. Now turning to the site plan itself. As he brings that into focus, now you have the site plan with the Shallowford Road across the northern side here, as well as Shallowford Road down the eastern side here. This is Jamerson Road that continues towards Woodstock. Again, this is Chad's Ridge subdivision here. What's being added to this plan is this property here. It's approximately 3 acres. We've been able to maintain a buffer and open space in this area, added this as pure open space here that will be usable open space. But for the approved plan, under the existing RA6 zoning, which is basically this tract here that's already RA6, that approved plan had approximately 1.6 to 1.7 acres of open space. Now what we've done is increase that by 5-fold. The total amount of open space now that's being proposed is 5.7 acres, and yet we've been able to maintain the same level of density, meaning the unit per acre basis of 5.8 units per acre. What we've also been able to do, and what they've seen, and when I was mentioning about making sure that this type of community can be built to the quality that's demanded here for this active adult market, as well as for the quality that's demanded at this intersection to establish it as a residential neighborhood, is the inclusion of a full amenity here, as well as making this open space usable with walking trails and the such, because it can be utilized as such, and which would only add to the overall value of this community. In addition, you'll see that this property has a tremendous amount of road frontage on Shallowford Road. What we wanted to do there is do some heavy landscaping in conjunction with, and we put it in our stipulation letter, and it's kind of rare to see this much road frontage with the treatment that's going to be given here and committed to as a condition, and that is to utilize a combination of wrought iron fencing and masonry columns, as well as masonry walls along that entire frontage area, so that, again, and it goes back to my earlier statement, when you get to this section of Shallowford Road and you make the turn, you're coming from Woodstock on Jamerson Road, you're no longer in a commercial, industrial type of area. You're entering a residential neighborhood. That type of treatment along that frontage with the heavy landscaping will only make that statement for them. We've also agreed that at plan review, we will make sure that landscaping plan and fencing plan will be presented and given to the Chad's Ridge Homeowners Association for their input and review as well, so that we have that level of assurance that what's being promised and committed in terms of the quality will be met and satisfied at that point in time. Again, we think this is a great project. It's one that was really approved last year, and it's only gotten, we believe, better by the addition of open space area that was otherwise would have been built for 4 additional lots. We've now included that as an open space area. It also provides better buffer to the southern commercial and industrial and office services uses, and then with that, though, maintain that same level of density on a unit per acre basis. We've included now a full amenity, as well as included additional stipulations on top of the ones that were already in place on this property from last year's approval. We believe that with these additions, it's a great project. From a zoning perspective, all that's being done is adding 3 acres of open space and making sure that the overall project stays within the density of 5.8 units per acre, which it was established as an active adult community last year. I do think it's important that I thank Mr. Eric Hill of Chadds Ridge Homeowners Association, who worked with us last year on this project, worked with us this year on this project, been very instrumental in the meetings that we've had in getting to this point, as well as Ms. Carol Brown of the Canton Road Neighbors has also been involved and very helpful in our meetings and discussions as we've brought this forward at this point in time. We have a stipulation letter dated October 27th, 2016. That stipulation letter contains all of the elements that I discussed in this presentation, as well as additional ones. I don't want to go through those and bore you with each and every one of those, but they're the same stipulations that are already in place on the 12-acre, already existing RA6 portion of this property. And then we've also gone in and added to that and ensured that there will be the masonry walls, the additional open space, the additional nature trails and walking trails, as well as making sure that the commitment to provide the landscaping and fencing plan, which will really establish this location as a gateway location at Shallowford and Jamerson, that will be shared with Chadds Ridge Homeowners Association at the time of the planning of permitting. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have and would respectfully request your recommendation for approval of this rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. You did good with your time management. We appreciate that.
I do try. Thank you.
Okay, let's hear from the opposition at this time, please. Good morning. Go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Carol Brown with Canton Road Neighbors, and I want to state, for the record, we aren't opposed to this, but I do want to make some comments that are just remaining concerns, and certainly appreciate Mr. Kevin Moore meeting with Mr. Hill and myself to discuss this project. At 88 lots, the project is still too dense, and our main concern is that the entire stream buffer area and impervious setbacks be restored to the site plan, as it was on the original 12 acres on the eastern side of the stream. And we're very pleased that Mr. Moore and the developer are willing to create walking trails in the open space area as an amenity for the residents. This site plan doesn't really meet all the requirements of the RA6 zoning district, nor does the number of units fall within the MDR land use. But having said that, it does appear to be a quality project, and with some further modifications or revisions, should very definitely be a positive addition to the community in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And for the record, anyone else wishing to speak to this zoning? Okay, not seeing and hearing any. It's back to this board. This is in District 3, so that is handled by Ms. Trombetti. We'll ask her to lead our discussion. Christy?
Thank you. We have continued this case a couple of times, I guess, and I just want to say I think the community involvement has made it a better plan, and that happens over and over again when we have continuances. So I really appreciate that. It makes things easier for us today. When the plan is a better plan and the stip letter is more complete, and there's been plenty of discussion and cooperation. Mr. Hill from Chadds Ridge is here today. He didn't speak, but he, as Kevin said, has been really active in working on this along with the Canton Road Neighbors and Carol Brown. I think RA6 can be an appropriate category here. Chadds Ridge is zoned RA6, and this property really is the transitional piece of property between the general commercial, retail, light industrial, and some other established industrial uses and commercial uses in the Canton Road corridor that we're trying to improve upon. So it's really important that this property be developed in a way that enhances the area, and I think residential can do that. I think in this case, a community with private streets and the level of homeowner association commitment is important, because it's just an extra layer of assurance that the neighborhood will be maintained in a professional way. All of that road frontage that's going to be landscaped and fenced and with brick and wrought iron, I think will be a real improvement and good addition for this transitional piece of property and for the area leading from commercial into the residential communities west on Shalford Road. It is a little more dense than what the staff recommended. However, it is the same density that was recommended last year or approved last year under RA6. So I think there's a trade-off there. In this case, I think the 88 lots, they've lost 3, by the way, but I think having 88 homes to help support the amenities and the landscaping and all the things that the homeowners association will be responsible for once it's built and turned over is important, so that the fees that those future homeowners are paying can be kept at a rate that makes sense for the market at that time. So in terms of density, I'm not going to get really hung up on the number. I do have a question about the stream buffer, though. It might help us to understand the buffer averaging that's necessary sometimes. Kevin, if you, or Mr. Moore. Tell us about your conversations with Stormwater Management or Frank Gibson from Community Development.
Sure. And if I could, it'd be easier just to show you so you
Okay.
can see the location of it. The discussions, is this on?
It's not on the screen. Let's get it on the screen too,
Okay,
if we can, Cornelius.
takes a second. There it comes. All right, thank you. The discussion concerns this area here, and you saw it on the prior map where there is a stream that comes through this area here, then continues on across the street, across Shallowford, Jamerson here. The initial discussion we had with Cobb County Stormwater Division, in particular Mr. Frank Gibson, was to utilize a lot of this area in a method called buffer averaging, which is allowed in certain circumstances. It's reviewed very closely by Stormwater Division to assure that it's appropriate, number one, and number two, that the buffer being gained is more than the buffer being lost. And initially, we had, the plan did not, initially the plan encroached on the 50-foot stream buffer here, and that was why there was a proposal for a lot of buffer averaging to compensate for that here. That was approved by Mr. Frank Gibson. He was okay with that as far as that plan goes. In the discussions that we had over the last 2 months, the plan was changed so that we fully instituted the 50-foot stream buffer here, but kept all of the open space here that was being used for buffer averaging. So that's what we did. We maintained the 50-foot buffer as open space, put that back in here to make sure that that was there, but then also made sure we kept all of this area as open space as well. And that's how we were able to go from the 1.7 acres of open space under the current approved plan times 5. Now we're at basically 5.7 acres of open space.
So are you saying that buffer averaging won't be necessary at plan review, or it's
in
not
this-
being requested?
In this instance, what we have proposed is there's also an additional 75-foot impervious setback. And so what we are doing with that is instead of doing the impervious setback here, we're keeping in place all of the open space and buffer averaging in that location. So it's more than compensating for what is being proposed here in an area here that makes a lot more sense from a stormwater standpoint.
On number 16 of your stipulation letter, where it says the applicant agrees to comply with Cobb County stormwater management requirements, could we add something there that says that the site plan would be flexible if necessary to accommodate?
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
just, I think we know that that's the case, but just to confirm that should stormwater management need to ask you to make changes, this stip letter doesn't override anything that could happen. At
We
plan
have no
review.
problem with that whatsoever. Our engineers for this, Centerline Engineering, had met extensively with Mr. Gibson before we even filed. So, I mean, that's why we're very comfortable with that and feel like we can work with
Okay.
stormwater. And if changes need to be made, those can be made.
I don't think I have any other questions, except maybe you could explain a little bit more about the access on,
Sure.
or the secondary access, I guess.
There are two access points. One is here at Shallowford that lines up with Old Farm Road, which is the access onto Shallowford from Chadds Ridge subdivision. In this location, that's a controlled or limited access location there. This point of access, and this was part of the approval from last year, that we worked with them to provide another secondary access point so that this neighborhood can access Shallowford here and be able to go west on Shallowford. But that's also what that does is spread the traffic out. You have people that can leave and go this way and people that can leave and go this way as well, and put them on two different roads as opposed to a single access directly across from Chadds Ridge. So it was a means of traffic improvement and traffic flow to assure that there wouldn't be a bottleneck at this location here at a limited access.
Okay, thank you. No one mentioned traffic this morning, but I think that's important, especially during rush hour times when there's so much east-west on Shallowford, and some people who are trying to eventually go north toward Roswell Alpharetta, and then others who just want to get to Canton Road and go toward
Correct.
Marietta. So that's important. I don't have any other questions unless someone else does.
Any other
I
questions?
do.
Go ahead, please.
I'm just looking at the site plan, and it looks like we have a number of dead ends, and I don't see hammerheads or anything for fire truck turnaround and things like that.
I never try to speak for the fire marshal, but I will tell you my understanding in discussing, I had the same question, discussing that with Centerline Engineering, is that they had reviewed that specifically with the fire marshal's office to ensure that those were appropriate and met their requirements. Obviously, much like stormwater, the site plan is not going to control what the fire marshal department ultimately approves during plan review, but I asked the same question to
Okay.
make sure, and that's my
And I see
understanding.
Rock nodding his head that, yes, that did occur, so we're good.
Good.
Okay, I just want
That
to
makes
make
me
sure.
feel even better that I was told the right thing.
Okay, thanks.
Don't mess with Rock. He's the ultimate,
I don't.
he could stop you in your tracks, but he's nodding his head, so I guess we're okay. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, don't mess with Rock. No other comments or questions? Okay, Christie, you want to go ahead with the
Okay.
motion?
Yes, and thank you again for all the work that went into this. It may not be the perfect plan, but I think it is the perfect plan for this location, and I hope it turns out to be as nice of a project as we think it will. I'd like to make a motion that we approve Z80 to the RA6 category, subject to the letter submitted by Kevin Moore dated October 27th, 2016, with the associated site plan and elevations, also subject to all staff comments and recommendations, with those to control ultimate site plan arrangement during plan review if need be. And that would be my motion.
Okay, we have a second by Judy. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. Okay, thank you, Christie. Let's go back to our consent agenda, John, if we can. I see those folks that come back in the room. Mr. Moore, where are you? Were you able to answer, why don't you come on up? Were you able to answer the questions of that couple? Okay, short answer, yes. I'm not sure we need to go into any details. Thank Mr. Siphon for his help with that as well.
They don't need it here.
Okay, so they don't need to hear the case, so we're okay
I'll
with
go
that.
read it back in and we'll.
Let's read it back in, just so that we're clear on what we have here.
Okay. Rezoning case Z102, Riverview Associates Limited, request rezoning from RRC with stipulations to RRC with stipulations for the purpose of a mixed-use development in land lot 976, 977, 1016, and 1017 of the 17th District. The property is located at the northwesterly intersection of Cobb Parkway, which is US Highway 41, and Paces Mill Road. Staff recommends approval to the RRC zoning district with stipulations, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on September 30th, 2016, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Letter of agreeable stipulations from Mr. John Moore dated October 25th, 2016. Fire Department comments and recommendations, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z102? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Okay, this is in District 2, so that's my district. Just so people know, this is an improvement over a previous zoning, so it makes sense that we do leave it on the consent agenda. So I would recommend approval for Z102 to the consent agenda. Can we get a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor of putting that back on the consent agenda, please register your vote. So we're okay. Thank you, folks, for working with us on that. John, what's next, please?
Yes, sir.
C80 for a second.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we do need to add that to the consent agenda for the Board of Commissioners. Second, okay with that? Okay, so we'll do that. Christie, you had a comment on Z80?
I just want to go back to that for a second and recommend that that be on the consent for the Board of Commissioners as well, if we could do that.
Can we do that at this late date?
Well, we had opposition.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
She really wasn't opposed.
Is Kara still here?
Carol Brown?
Yeah.
She can pull it off before the board meeting if,
Okay, I think we're right.
we can try it. And
Yeah.
of course, they can take it off the consent if they want to, but I think it's candidate.
Okay, who was the second on that motion? Okay, you okay with that? Okay, so we're going to add Z80 also to the Board of Commissioners consent agenda. And as Christie just indicated, should we need to pull it off consent at the BOC, we can. Okay, Carol, I don't see.
She just went outside.
She keeps
I
coming in
don't
and
think
out.
we need to
It's
bring
okay.
Carol back into this. I think we're fine.
Okay.
No, I don't think we have to vote. Do we have to vote on that
To
again?
change the motion,
You gotta change the motion to add it to consent.
Okay,
I'd like to
Amend the
revise,
motion.
amend the motion for Z80 and add it to the consent agenda for the Board of Commissioners.
okay, we have a second to the second. How about that? Okay, all in favor of that? So we did that then. Debbie, are we okay with that?
You are.
You are, okay.
Sure.
It happened at the same meeting, so you're good.
She's our attorney, so,
sitting here. so
yeah, I
it's-
haven't been fired yet. Okay, thank you very much. John, what's next, please?
Yes, sir. Zoning case C91, Pollock Shores Development LLC. Request rezoning from O&I to RRC for the purpose of a mixed-use development in land lots 877 and 917 of the 17th District. The property is located on the easterly side of Herodian Way, in between Circle 75 Parkway or Spar Drive. The applicant is present, and earlier, where's my list at? Earlier, there was 14 people opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
If you think you want to speak, but you're not really sure, come on up and be sworn in. Doesn't mean you have to speak, but let's go ahead and get you sworn in at this time. Morning, Mr. Moore.
Good morning.
Whenever
Mr.
you're ready,
Chairman.
sir.
Thank you, members of the board. For the record, my name is John Moore, and I'm here representing Pollock Shores and Pope and Land with regard to this proposal. This is a property consisting of a little over 9.5 acres located at the intersection of Herodian Way and Circle 75 Parkway and Crescent Park Drive. It's known generally by everybody as the Genuine Parts Building location, and it's been that way for a long time. Genuine Parts, as you might remember, we rezoned property in Wildwood, and they built a new headquarters building and moved over there. And this property is now owned by Pope and Land, and it's going to have the existing building, which is that three-story office building, will remain, and it will be renovated. And I think I'm okay to say this, but I think that Brassfield Gorey is going to move their headquarters to this building, so that's a very good thing for Cobb County as well. And the southern portion of this property then will be the Pollock Shores part that we're talking about. The entire piece is being zoned RRC. It's currently zoned O&I. The Pollock Shores, and I guess I can point on and talk about one other thing while I'm there, I guess. This is Herodian Way, and this is Circle 75 Parkway, and this is Crescent Park Drive. This is the existing office building that we're talking about that's going to be renovated. This is the proposed apartments that Pollock Shores will do. Pollock Shores is also the company that's developing the apartments as part of the Battery for the Braves, and this would be an additional one that they're proposing to do on this property. A couple of things while we're here. We found out during the pendency of this in meeting with the residents, when we had continued this to meet with the residents, which we did, that Crescent Park Drive is a private road. I think our engineers and a lot of people assumed it was public, but it's not. It's a private road. And part of what we agreed is that we would not try to seek access to Crescent Park Drive. Across the street from this property, across Crescent Park Drive, are the Crescent Park townhomes, and that's the community, one of the communities we met with. One of the big issues also that we discussed with the residents then and leading up to that meeting was whether there's going to be a traffic signal installed at the intersection of Herodian Way and Circle 75 Parkway. They had told me that, a Waterford resident told me that that had been promised. I checked with Jane Strickland, who is now the engineer in charge of traffic signals with Cobb DOT, and she said, yes, it is planned to be a traffic signal at this location, and they hope to have it installed by April of 2017, which was a big traffic reliever for all this area that we're dealing with. We're proposing a maximum of 300 units, a maximum of 5 stories. While I'm here, instead of making another trip, this is a view looking across. This is Crescent Park Drive. On the other side of Crescent Park Drive, looking back towards this proposed development. And you will see the street trees. That's part of the stipulations and part of what they asked us to do as well. They were also concerned that we were not going to be developing right up to the curb line, which we're not. We're going to leave space there, as you see in this rendering. But it'd be a very attractive view as you look from there towards this development. This is another view of the same thing. This is Crescent Park looking back, and you see looking down Crescent Park Drive, but you see the street trees as well, and then what is on our side, on their side of the road as well. And this is another view showing the attractive landscaping, and this is one of the big features that Pollock Shores does with their developments, is to do an outstanding job with landscaping. I kind of went out of order of where I was going to go, but while I was there, I figured I'd handle most of the stuff I had to do. These units will also be upgraded units. In our stipulation letter, we go through a long list of upgrades that all these units will have, including 9-foot ceilings, wood cabinets. We'll have granite countertops. We'll have top-of-the-line appliances, and so on. You can read the whole list in my stip letter. I don't want to go through the whole thing. But these will be very upgraded units. And they will be from 700 square feet to 1,400 and greater. Studio 1, 2, and 3, very few 3s, but most of this will be 1s and 2s. Again, this is not intended for families. This is intended for older and either married and no children or single, one way or the other. And a market study was done by Pollock Shores in conjunction with the one they were doing at the Battery. And this area, according to the market studies, still underserved by apartments. And the reason being, one of the main reasons being that we have approved, I say we, Cobb County has approved 5 high-rise office towers in this area, which some of which are under construction, none of which were spec, like the HD Supply building, the Synovus building, the Comcast building, Riverwood 200 building, and I missed one more someplace. But we also approved last month an additional one, and one is on for a zoning amendment later before the Board of Commissioners to add a 7th high-rise tower. We haven't had any in 18, 20 years, and we now have 7 new ones. And you've got all these people who are going to be working here. And one of the existing apartment complex, the Reserve at the ballpark, which is across the street from the stadium, I was told that they've already had some Comcast employees rent from them. So I think what they're seeing is there's going to be a dynamic. It's not just millennials. There are going to be people who work here that are going to be living here. In fact, some of the Braves players live at the ballpark as well, since it's right across the street from the stadium. But I think that the point being that there was some discussion in the meeting that we don't need anymore, and I think these are different. These are not garden apartments. These are in a style of office buildings, which gives a long-standing, much better appearance, and I think long-standing upkeep that will look like an office building going forward. In that meeting, I think one of the main things was concerns by the residents was construction activity in the area and traffic resulting from all of that. And I agree with them. There is a lot of construction activity in this area, but it's not forever. Most of the construction activity should be over within 18, 24 months from now. Some of it earlier and some of it later. But the Braves Stadium is supposed to be open in March of 2017, which is the biggest construction activity ongoing right now. The others are much smaller in stature. But I think that will resolve itself over a period of time. I've covered the access to Crescent Park Drive and the traffic signal and too many apartment buildings. And some people wanted this to be a retail site, the residents wanted us to consider retail. This is not considered a retail location, especially in conjunction with its proximity to the Battery, which is full of retail and not that far away from where we are from this location. The proposal fits, obviously, the land use plan. This is a regional activity center. This zoning is appropriate for that. And your professional staff has recommended approval of this proposed rezoning, saying it is conformity with the land use plan and fits within the plan of the county for this area. I know there was I looked at the Cobb DOT recommendations. I understand there are some other concerns that they have, or concerns, but points they'd like to discuss, but the ones I have heard were not in their recommendation and comments. But we're certainly willing to work with Cobb DOT, certainly to resolve any issues that Cobb DOT may or may not have. We certainly stand ready to answer any questions that you might have. Mr. Noah Randall and Mr. Brian Oates with Pollock are here and can answer any questions as well. So I think I came close to being on time, Mr. Chairman.
You did good.
Thank you.
4, 3, 2, 1. Have a seat. Okay, let's hear from the opposition at this time, please. And John, if you would just, can you leave that up there?
I can,
for
sure.
us? Yeah, please. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commission members. My name is Ellen Smith. I'm with Holt, Nazak, Coffin, Wasserman, 100 Gallery Parkway. Suite 1800, Atlanta, Georgia. I have the pleasure this morning of representing two neighboring property owners and associations. They are Waterford Place Condominium Association and Towns of Crescent Park with respect to their opposition to this application. Just so you know, we're not opposed to multifamily as a concept, right? We are, however, opposed to multifamily on this particular portion of the property. We also just note for you that the improvements and changes to the existing Genuine Parts office building that Brassfield Gorey or whomever intends to do doesn't need rezoning for those improvements. We certainly have no objections to the refurbishment of that office building. With all due respect to Mr. Moore and the applicant and their market study, this market is oversaturated, period, with respect to multifamily. We respectfully request you recommend denial of this application to the Board of Commissioners for these reasons. Just to give you a little bit of background, Waterford Place is a mature, more than 30-year-old condominium development with 120 units. Located on 13.49 acres. It's zoned R12, but its density is less than 9 units to the acre. By contrast, the applicant's proposed multifamily component of 300 units over approximately half of the property that's before you, 9.5 acres, is a density of 63 units per acre. That is significant, and we ask you to consider it. The other thing that Mr. Moore didn't raise with respect to density is the existing office buildings are there, it's roughly 105, 106,000 square feet. On their latest site plan that they filed last week, there's another building, it says proposed building on the site plan. Has no square footage, has no height, has no description, is not mentioned in his stipulation letter. We have no idea what that building is supposed to be. That would also increase the density overall of this project. Directly to the west of the proposed project, across Herodian, that's Waterford Place. Next to this project is Towns of Crescent. It's an owner-occupied townhome community of 107 units. These neighbors have been actively engaged with the applicant since the application was filed in August of this year. But there has been one meeting. It was on October 11th, roughly 2.5 weeks ago. And at that time, no site plan that was revised was presented, no traffic study was shown, no market analysis was shown, and no proposed conditions were agreed to. You all likely, as I know the commissioners have, received numerous emails and phone calls opposing this application. Last Friday, we filed with staff petitions including more than 200 signatures in opposition to this application. I'll raise one procedural question for you too. One is whether the application is properly before you. The applicant is Pollock Shores. The owner who has to sign is approving. The filing of the application was listed as Genuine Parts. That was correct up until mid-August when the property was transferred, not once but twice, by deeds dated August 19th and recorded August 29th. To our knowledge, the current owner of the property has not consented to the filing of the rezoning application. But more substantively and importantly, we have constitutional concerns regarding the application because the property already has a reasonable economic use as it is currently zoned. The O&I zoning and current use, including any of the permitted uses in the O&I zoning district, which this property could be used for, are valuable, have been used by Genuine Parts for a long time, and are going to be used by other tenants. In fact, in the staff's report, they say that office developments are considered the most appropriate for this future land use map category. And just weeks ago, when the Braves announced their latest tenant in their office building, they said, man, if we had known of the demand, we would have built almost double the office size. So with all due respect, we say apartment is not appropriate. Office use, as currently zoned, is. Just to give you an idea, and we haven't seen the market research that was performed despite having asked for it, I suspect it does not include all of the apartments that this board has approved in the past 2 or 3 years and that have come online or are being constructed. Mr. Moore referenced 7 new office buildings. They have also not taken into account the following: preferred apartment communities on Cobb Galleria Parkway, Approved last month, 600 new apartment units. Overton Rise, where there are vacancies, it has just been opened, 296 units. Denton's, I can't read my own writing, Broadstone at Windy Ridge, just east of SunTrust Park, which is coming online in 2017, 300 units. Stadium Walk, Ackerman's project, which is under construction, 392 units. The Encore, which part of it has opened, I think there was a ribbon cutting in the last 2 or 3 weeks, part of it's still under construction, 339 units. The Reserve, taking into account phases 1, 2, and 3, 820 units. Battery Living Experience, what an experience we can all have, 541 units. Metro at Parkwood Circle, between 200 to 288 units. That total, that's not taking into account anything in the city of Smyrna, which, as you know, is right by this project, and not taking into account existing historical units, 3,035 units. The applicant's proposal to you is to increase that number by 10% more. With all due respect, the staff report and the department comments, including schools and transportation, do not take into account those entitled but not yet occupied projects. So when you see the school board's report that says Brumby Elementary is underserved, it's not taking into account 300 new units that are coming online. Whether these apartments are intended to be housing families or not, some percentage of them will. So I ask you to take that into consideration. Further, with respect to traffic, the staff DOT comments with Mr. Moore said there were some in the staff's report and others that he's heard, but I'm not sure what those are. The staff has already told us that Herodian Way does not meet current right-of-way standards as it exists right now. It's not wide enough. DOT recommends additional dedication, not just along Circle 75, but also Herodian. They've already asked for a buffer variance, a setback variance down to 25 feet. That does not include the recommended decel lanes, doesn't include the additional right-of-way that GDOT or DOT has requested. And respectfully, I ask you to consider those when you are looking at this application. The other thing that's a little unclear, the initial application sought a 12% reduction in parking to be provided for the property. Mr. Moore's letter of stipulation says parking is to be provided in accordance with Cobb ordinance. So I'm not sure if that remains a waiver or not. But parking, obviously, we've read a lot about parking in this overall area generally, and that's a concern, especially for these two projects and neighbors which are not gated. They already have a concern about traffic coming onto their property and people looking to park on their property and in their visitor spaces. This will only exacerbate the problem. Finally, I already said this, the revised site plan includes reference to a footprint for a new building with no dimensions, square footage, height, description, or information. We're not sure what that building is for, and we respectfully request, in short, that you consider the multi-family portion of this rezoning will have an adverse impact on neighbors, including their property values, that this is a use that is not suitable in light of what has already been approved by the Board of Commissioners, built, and is being built, and this will place an excessive burden that is unnecessary on our streets and our school systems. We respectfully request you recommend denial of this application. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ellen. We do have about a minute remaining. We had another speaker or two. Do you want to take that time? Okay, we'll go with what Ellen gave us. That was an excellent presentation. We appreciate that. John Moore, would you come back up, please? Let's cover a few of the points that Ellen raised. What about this building on the site plan that's unidentified? Can you point to it on the plan that's on the board behind you? And what is it? I think I know where it is, but I'd like you to identify it for us. That one, yeah. That's what I think it is.
Yes.
Now, before you tell us what it is, I want people to notice that that entrance right there, which is an existing entrance, it's not a new entrance, does not align with the across the street new development DOT has told me and has indicated to Mr. Moore that it must align. If that has to move back down to align with that entrance to the new development, I believe it's Breton, I believe is the ridge, Breton Ridge, that building will have to go away. Now, you want to comment on that building?
Yes. A couple of things. On the entrance, that is a shared entrance for the office and the apartment complex. And in meetings, what we were asked to do was minimize the number of curb cuts on Herodian Way. That's why we put it there, because that, as you can see, as you drive in, I'm sorry. As you come in, this road separates, and this goes to the office and parking deck, and this comes into the parking deck, and the surface parking for the apartment complex. If you move it down, it won't serve as it can't serve as a joint access point.
Well, the first plan that was submitted had it aligned, as I talked about, and it did service both. I'm
Well-
saying you're probably going to be forced by DOT to move it back into alignment with the Breton Ridge.
We're willing to work with them, but I think that what we're trying to do is make it work better traffic flow wise, so you come directly in off Herodian and you take a left to the office and a right to the apartment complex without having to drive around curves to do that. But we certainly will work with them. That, as I said, those comments were not in their recommendations and comments that they sent out. So that's something new that I just learned about.
Yeah. Well, we do have a new letter from them, which we're going to discuss in just a minute. I'll ask Ashley to come
Okay.
up and we'll talk about that.
That's fine. It's just not in what they
I got
sent
you.
out.
I got you. Yeah, tell us, what was the intention for that building? I can't read the very small mouse type. What is that?
It shows it's 7,300 square feet per floor. You know how many stories that is? 3 stories. The
Just-
same as the others.
Just as an addition to the existing,
They wanted the capability to have an additional space if they needed, if they outgrew the space that they were going to be in, which is just a little over 100,000 square feet. So if they needed more, they were going to build a building 3 stories high, just the same as they had before. And, well, same as the building that's there, and have additional office space on
okay,
the
so
same
it's
campus.
future growth.
Correct.
Should they need it? Okay.
Yes, they may or may not ever build it.
Okay.
It's just shown there as a future building, proposed future building.
And plus, when the revised plan, this plan came in, I noticed the addition of these parking spaces. I don't know how many that is, but 20 or 30 there. How are you on parking requirements? Do you have the enough required parking?
Yes,
As required by code?
yes,
You do?
yes.
Okay, so that was not an attempt to pick up some additional parking that you needed.
No, that was actually, once they designed this proposed building, it made sense, since you were going to come by that building, to put parking spaces in there, so people you could have visitor parking there to go in the building or in the main building without
Okay,
having to go in the
gotcha.
deck.
Did anyone contact you? I know the letters went out as is required to
Right.
everyone that lives within 1,000 feet, and I trust most people did get those letters announcing the intention and the zoning that was coming up. Did anyone contact you requesting another meeting, an
No.
additional meeting?
I worked with Waterford, Mr. Kaler, and I worked with Crescent Park Townhomes, Ross, and we scheduled a meeting, but we didn't have the revised site plan. We didn't have all the information, so we postponed that meeting, and then we had the meeting on October 11th. I was not asked to have another meeting. We took all their feedback. I took that feedback and did my stipulation letter and sent it out to both of them to disseminate.
Because I know the first plan mentioned and showed, in fact, access to Crescent, which I believe is incorrectly labeled as Crescent Park Drive. That's actually Crescent Parkway.
Right,
That access point was removed
Correct.
after you found out that's a private road,
That's
number
right.
one, so you can't really access it anyway. And plus, the neighbors said, we don't want it.
correct.
So when the new plan came out, you did remove that. Okay.
Yes, we did.
When the new revised plan, the one we're looking at now, was submitted to us and to John, I guess that went up on the county website, John, pretty quickly? The revised plan? It did not. So the plan that the public had access to is the one that's in the book. Okay. All right, that's not good. I wish we'd had access. I wish people had called you and requested that and had had access to that. So
Well,
that's-
the revised site plan was attached to the stipulation that it was disseminated to everybody.
Okay. That was available, John, was it not? Then it was available.
Yes.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Yes.
Who owns the site currently?
Pope and Land, I think. When I say I think, at the time we filed, Union Parts owned it, and thereafter, Pope and Land bought it, and then my understanding is they're under contract to both Brassville Gorey and Pollock Shores. I don't know that either have closed yet. I know Pollock Shores hasn't. Brassville Gorey may have already. I'm not sure. I wasn't involved in the
Pope
closing.
and Land controls the site at this point, though?
Yes,
Okay, and they were involved in some way or some fashion, I guess, in this plan?
yes, they were. They were very much aware. They had it under contract at the time that we were about to file the application, and we filed it with the then current owner. Pope and Land was aware of it. They took, they obviously went under contract with both Brassville Gorey and Pollock Shores, knowing that this was coming. In fact, we had several big conference calls with all the lawyers that and the clients that deal with all these different parties, letting everybody know what we were doing.
So all these, all these parties are very much involved in this plan from the
Yes,
beginning.
sir.
Have any of them, or did anyone else come forward with an O&I plan or any kind of retail shopping plan?
No,
No. So this is what came forward. No one else is trying to get this site that you're aware of for any other use? Okay.
no, sir.
Talk to me about oversaturation of apartments in the area. I'm very familiar with Smyrna because I live there and I get involved in some of those issues with development there. So I can speak to that. I'm not as involved with some of these others that Ellen mentioned to us. Are we oversaturated, or is there really a need for more housing units?
Let me answer that in twofold, okay? I'm going to answer your question. The first part of that is, that's not an issue for zoning. The second part is, no, we're not oversaturated. As I said, the market study was done, and it contemplated, because all these are known, the Encore has been zoned for a couple of years, and, it's been building. The Overton Park, one that was done by New Market, was known. It's been under construction for 2 years as well. All the ones we're talking about, other than the one that was approved in September, the one next to the Encore was not probably known. That's the only one. All the rest of those are all known and have been known. And I think that there are, I think she's estimated 3,000 units. I'm not sure whether she was saying total or I understood that to be total, but I'm not sure. But they're not. The ones that were developed 4 years ago are all full.
That was my next question. Do we know what the rate of rental and occupancy is? And I've been told that some of these actually have a waiting list.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
It is. The one that Trammell Crow did, the one that Walton Communities did. We have one that Mill Creek is doing now that has the lake next to it on Cumberland Boulevard. And then we have the ones off of Cumberland Boulevard across the street from those next to Stillhouse. All of those are completely full. My understanding is that there are no vacancy in any of those. And so these, the ones that she listed are, some of them are open, like the one that I said New Market, it's Newport Development, have been leasing for 6 months maybe, and it takes a while to lease those up. But there's been no shortage of people ready to rent these, and the rents run, I think, generally from $1,300 a month for a studio up over $2,500 and up to $3,000 a month if you want a 3-bedroom. And there aren't many 3-bedrooms, I'll say that. But like in the reserve at Ballpark, they put some 3-bedroom units. They made them 2-bedroom, but they were 3-bedroom. They took the space out because they had some people who wanted larger units, 3,000 square foot units instead of just this 2,000 square feet. So the point, and they have leased up as well, the ballpark apartments.
If the BOC approves this, if we approve it and the BOC goes along with that recommendation, when do you anticipate beginning construction here, and how long will it take?
I think they would plan to get underway next spring, after the winter time. They have to go through permitting, which takes a while to do that, and work with DOT. Then it takes about 12 months, I would say, is that to build? Pardon? 18 months to build. So they would come online, let's see, late 2018 or early 2019.
Any issues with stormwater runoff? I did have one question from one person about stormwater.
It's underground, and we realize that we are going to have to modify that existing underground, which will make it updated. It's older, so this will to take into account this additional development on this site, but that will be modified and updated. Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for John? Christie?
Just for clarification, I guess, because we're talking about all the multifamily that's either on the ground or on the way in the area. Are these 3,000 or so units that Ellen mentioned all apartments for rent, or do you think that includes condominium projects that have also been?
I recognize most of the ones that she listed. The ones I recognize were apartments. Some of them I didn't know, but I would think most of them are leased units, yes.
Okay, and just what I'm thinking of is how an approved apartment community we know that it's rental, but then we have condominium communities that are really owner occupant, and many of them have rental restrictions where you can only have up to 10% rental, and it's just two different, it's like apples and oranges. And then similarly, the garden style apartments are not comparable to the newer types of apartments like this. And as far as a market study goes, I think it would be interesting to see a little more detail and not just, and maybe it did just look at rental units only, but I'm wondering if some of the analysis on either part included condos, which just aren't the same kind of development. And then the other thing that I was just thinking as we were talking about apartments is how maybe 18 years ago or so, maybe less, we had a moratorium, did we not, on
Yes.
apartment construction because we found ourselves oversaturated in the area with the ratio of owner-occupied housing to rental. And that was it took a long time, if I remember, to turn that back around in the Smyrna Vinings area. So that's just another kind of point of discussion, I guess. And then also wondering, and this isn't specific to the plan, but it has to do with the fact that even though this is a really nice looking project, it doesn't exist in isolation. A lot of the condominium communities that have been built over the last 10 years or so were allowed to be rented because they couldn't be sold due to some of the issues with lending that were going on. So we have a whole hodgepodge of multifamily types and varieties, and I'm not saying whether this is needed or not. It's not one of the requirements of the zoning analysis, but I do think it's a discussion we should be having, and maybe the planning division is already looking at some of that as part of our comp plan process.
If I could respond to one part of that, when you're talking about the saturation, I think not only are people in that Cumberland Gallery area cognizant of what's going on, they are also cognizant they don't want to overbuild, because that affects the rent rates that you can charge if you have empty units. So I think they are monitoring that as we go forward, and so are these developers. The worst thing is to have a $50 million investment that becomes worth $25 million overnight. And so they're spending a lot of money, and that's why they do these studies. But I think everybody is cognizant of that very fact you're talking about. and that is you don't want to oversaturate the market. This area has been underserved for a long time. Until the advent of these, what I call office-type structures that house multifamily, we didn't have any zonings. When Commissioner Thompson was the commissioner in this district, I think we went over 15 years, and there were none in this area that were done. In fact, I'm pretty sure.
I will tell you too, because I was working there at the time, Smyrna had a moratorium on apartments as well, John. I'm sure you remember that lasted for a long time. No apartments, they just wouldn't allow them. They lifted that moratorium, I want to think about 3 or 4 years ago, and they just can't seem to catch up. And that's what's happening everywhere. I do know about Belmont Hills, which is under development right now. They have a 95% rate already. I mean, and they have a waiting list for some of the complexes there. And that's pretty true of most of the complexes in this area. So I think there is still a demand. Now, how long it'll last, who knows?
But I think it is something that everybody's aware of.
They're watching it closely.
Right.
They have to because of the very large amount of money they're going to put into this area. So
Yes, sir.
I do understand that. Anything else for John? Okay, thank you very much, John.
Thank
You can have a seat unless you have something else for us.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. This is in District 2, and I have spent a considerable amount of time analyzing this and looking at this, and I've actually walked this property. I've actually been in both of the developments that are here. I do want to thank everyone for all the emails that I got. Did get a lot of them. I read every single one. I did respond to a lot of them. I had one lady ask me why I didn't answer her questions directly. We can't do that. We can't judge the case and rule on the case by email. So I take your comments under advisement. I do read them. All of us get them. We be sure that they're a part of the record, so we thank you for that. I did receive the petition that Ellen mentioned and noted how many people signed that. I'm going to have to repeat some of what we've already heard, but I think by way of summary, we need to do that. We do all know we're talking about the 9.5 acre Genuine Parts site. About a year and a half ago, I began hearing that the Braves were very interested in this site. They were interested in it for one reason only at that time, and that was to put in parking. They needed some surface parking to support the new Braves mixed use and stadium site. They needed a high-rise parking deck. For various reasons, which I can't go into here, they decided that was not going to work. And so this site came back on the market, and as we've heard John explain, Pope and Land stepped up and said this is an opportunity for us, and they did acquire the site, or they're in the process of acquiring the site. So we do have a new applicant, or a new owner. The site, the building site that exists, the building on the site that exists, I think is a very attractive older building. It is one that's worthy of saving. I'm glad they're not going to demolish it. They're going to refurbish the exterior. They're going to refurbish the inside, do some very nice landscaping. These folks are known for their landscaping. I think we'll be very pleased at what we see there. So I'm glad that is being saved. About 45% of the site, though, is the one that we're really questioning, and that is the one that all the folks have expressed concern about. So I want to go into a few of the issues that were raised by people that sent me emails. One was the lack of information. I think I did ask John that question. I think the information was available for the most part to anybody that sought it. It was there. So I'm not too concerned about the lack of information. I do think it was out there. Do we need more apartments? We've beat that to death. I don't think we need to go into that. I'm personally convinced, and I've seen all the studies, that we do need the apartments, and this is a good site for it. So I don't buy that argument at all. My property values will plunge. They will plummet. I heard that from almost every person that sent me an email. Now, that's very difficult for us to sit up here and say that will or will not happen. My best guess is, based on what we have seen in the area, based on what I know has happened in other areas where this is going on, is that just the opposite will occur. Property values will very likely increase, not decrease. There's no guarantee of that. No one can make that guarantee. But I do think that's something that we don't have to worry too awful much about. Stormwater we addressed. I think that'll be handled appropriately. We do have some safety, security issues, mostly related to traffic. So I'm going to ask our DOT representative Ashley White to come up, and we'll ask her to comment on a few of those points.
Hi, Ashley White with DOT.
Good. Ashley and I have spoken a few times, and I know that Ashley's been looking at this very carefully. This may require just an opinion. I'm not sure we'll know for sure, but I want to ask you, if a retail site were placed here, if an O&I site was placed here, an office complex was placed here, as opposed to an apartment, do you have a feel for whether that would generate more traffic, less traffic, about the same? Do you have a feel for that?
Right, if this site was developed with an office building or some kind of shopping center, it would increase the traffic. It would have more traffic than an apartment building. And just based on ITE's trip generation numbers, for an apartment complex of this size, the average PM peak hour would be about 1 trip per unit, opposed to a shopping center, which would be around 5 trips in the PM peak hour. And an office building would be around 2 trips during the PM peak hour. So there would be more traffic generated with a larger office building or shopping complex.
Okay. I've heard that people who live in the area are convinced that Herodian Way really cannot accommodate any additional traffic. Do you have an opinion about that? That if we add this apartment complex to the mix, that Herodian Way will become a real problem?
Well, like I said, with the apartment complex, you're talking about 2 extra trips per day for each unit. So I believe that this road can handle that additional traffic. And as was discussed before, we are putting a traffic signal at the intersection with Circle 75. So that'll kind of help control and mitigate traffic also.
Yeah.
But,
And that's important. Say again, John mentioned this, that traffic light at the intersection of Herodian and Circle 75 will be installed by when?
the goal is for it to be installed before first pitch, because we do have a Braves parking lot going in across the street. So we definitely have to get that signal in by early April of next year.
Okay. Another issue that was raised by almost everyone, the entrance, we don't have that up on the screen. Can we get that plan that's behind her back up on the screen? The entrance that's farthest to the west, which is a new entrance. I had concerns, and many of the other people who sent me emails had concerns about sight distance there. I tend to agree with them. That is a hill. There's a slight curve there. What do you think about that?
After taking a second look at it, it is almost at the bottom of a vertical curve or hill, and it does sit kind of along a horizontal curve also. But it is possible that sight distance issues can be worked out in plan review, and maybe they can grade the road down in front of the property to achieve the minimum sight distance requirement, which is 440 feet. Now, if they can show on their plan where they can grade the site down to meet that sight distance requirement, then everything is fine. But if they can't meet that sight distance requirement, we'd probably propose for the driveway to be restricted to right in, right out.
Okay.
Or we restrict left turns into that entrance.
So it may be, you agree then, that it's a potential issue,
It is now, yes.
but it's fixable, and if not, it would become a right in, right out.
Right.
Okay, all right. No decel lanes were shown on the plan, but I know you want decel lanes, is that correct?
I do. I would like decel lanes. I think we need decel lanes along Herodian Way. And now that they're connecting that private road, they removed the access from Crescent Parkway and added, connected the private road for access also on the Circle 75. I'd like to see a decel lane there also.
Let's talk about that private road. What Ashley's referring to is there's a road that currently runs behind the Genuine Parts building now that goes down and connects with Circle 75. The proposal that's in the STIP letter that we have on file wants to make that an inter-parcel access road with the apartment so that people will be encouraged to go to Circle 75 that way rather than go out onto Herodian Way. I think that's a great idea. But my question to Ashley last week was, that's a private road. Does Cobb County have any say-so, if I can say it that way, in that road? I mean, the width, curb and gutter, what has to be done so that that can work?
That road would need to be upgraded to our standards, and that requires a width of 24 feet to accommodate two-way traffic. I think they're a little shy of that width now. Curb and gutter, and since we're adding additional traffic on that road, we'd have to make sure they meet the requirements as far as, the asphalt thickness and things of that nature.
Okay, and finally, I asked you very late, so I don't know whether we've had time to really look into this. A number of people mentioned that Herodian was already a pretty dangerous road and that lots of accidents had occurred there. Did you have time to look into that, and what did you find about, what kind of accident reports can you share with us?
We did, so our traffic operations group looked at the entire length of Herodian Way over a 3-year period, and we found that there were 18 crashes total over 3 years. That was from September of 2013 to August of this year. So, I mean, it may sound like a lot, but 18 crashes over 3 years isn't anything that would require us to take, I guess, a deeper look into it. It's not as extreme as it sounds
So that's
compared to
fairly
other
low
roadways. It's fairly low,
for this
exactly.
area?
Yes.
How many of those occurred at the intersection of Herodian and Circle 75?
Okay, so we have 8 that occurred at Herodian and Circle 75. And as I said, we're putting a traffic signal up there, so that should help with any
And how many occurred on the other
crashes there.
end where it intersects 41?
And we have 8 that occurred at the other end, at Herodian and Cobb Parkway.
Okay, so that's really a pretty good, that's not bad.
Right, it's
Most
not-
of the
it's
accidents are
pretty low,
occurring at the
actually.
far end, not in the middle. Okay.
Exactly.
All right, that answers that. It could change when we add, I understand that, but I just wondered about the past and how we've done that. Anybody have questions for, actually, somebody needs a bathroom break, so we're gonna move forward here.
I do have one question about the alignment with the, looks like Chancellor Drive.
Right.
Is that now a recommendation of DOT?
It is. The original plan showed it aligned, and that's why my comments didn't mention it. But, our standards call for the roads to be aligned or at least have an offset minimum of 125 feet, which isn't the case on a new site plan. And that's just to prevent any conflicts with turning movements. So if they can at least meet that 125 feet offset requirement, it needs to be aligned just for safety reasons.
Okay.
So realignment of that road is something you're gonna recommend?
Yes.
Okay. At plan review, but I understand that.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Ashley. You can have a seat. I know it's frustrating for people who've lived in this area, some of whom have lived here for 20 and 30 years. I understand that. It's frustrating because of what the Braves have going on, lots of construction traffic. I noticed the other day when I was out there for a considerable length of time, I might add, a lot of the construction workers are actually parking on this site right now, so they're coming and going as well. But the good thing is that's going to end soon. We heard Mr. Moore mention that probably within the next year to 18 months, that construction will be done, including the mixed-use battery area that will be done. Now, the construction is going to start, that's for sure. But within 2 years, I think all of that is going to be done. So that's a good thing. Number two, I think all of the improvements to the roads, the highways, the intersections that are underway right now will also be concluded in about that same time. That's going to bring some real relief to the area that we don't now have. So that's encouraging. And number three, I'm just not convinced that property values are going to plummet, as a couple of people told me. I just don't think that's going to happen. So my recommendation, frankly, unless I have other questions or comments, is for approval for Z91. Anybody else have anything else? Okay, I'm going to recommend approval of Z91 for the RRC zoning mixed-use development, subject to staff comments and recommendations, including the revised DOT comments dated 10/28 from Ashley White. I realize that we don't have those yet, Madam Clerk, and I'll be sure that we get those, provide those to the clerk. Subject to the stiff letter from Mr. Moore dated 10/26 with the revised site plans and renderings attached. Subject to all the staff comments and recommendations. And with regard to the stiff letter, a couple of things I do want to add. There's a number 4 on page 2. I'm sorry, page 3, under the overall development. Number 4 has to do with the landscaping and trees that will be planted on the site, 10 feet in height. It doesn't mention what kind or what the spacing will be. So I want to add to the end of number 4, as approved by the county arborist for location and plant type. I think that'll take care of that. Also, we have nothing about work hours for the construction. Number 18, toward the end of the STIP letter, mentions that they will simply comply with whatever construction hours Cobb County recommends. I'd like to make those read Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday, 9 to 5, and no work on Sunday. And that would be all I want to change. Beg your pardon? Excluding holidays, yeah. That's all I want to add, so that'll be my motion. Can we get a second? We have a second from Judy. Any further discussion? Phil?
Yeah, just a couple things. One, that new building that's shown on the site that we have no information about.
It'll have to go away when they realign that.
Yeah, we may want to specifically say that goes away, and then it's not included, and they can come back later as another business item if they want to add a building once
They'd
everything's
have to do that
configured.
anyway if they're removing it.
You know, if it's on the site plan and we approve to the site plan, they could build it.
But if DOT requires them to realign
Right.
that road, that building.
But if they
goes
find
away.
some other way not to realign it with 125 feet offset or something, just something to think
I
about.
don't have it, with
But-
the Regional Activity Center, I don't
Yeah,
really think I have
yeah.
a problem with the future.
The other
obviously.
thing I'd say is, since Mr. Moore said they don't need a parking variance anymore, let's remove the staff recommended parking variance.
That's a good point. I think we are okay with the parking requirement. John, you okay with that? That was your recommendation?
I think we can leave it.
There's no problem in leaving it,
Let's just
frankly.
leave it, because we have over parking with the ordinance anyway, so let's just leave it.
Yeah, I agree. Let's just leave it.
Okay.
No problem leaving it. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Second, okay with that. Okay. All in favor, please register your vote. Thank you, folks, very much. We're going to take a quick break for about 10 minutes, and we'll be back to continue at about 11 o'clock. Okay, we're back after a brief break. If everyone would have a seat, please, we'll go ahead and get started. John, what's next on the agenda, please?
Rezoning case Z94, JLM Investment Group, request rezoning from R20 to RA5 for the purpose of a subdivision in land lot 70 of the First District. The property is located on the east side of Woodlawn Drive, south of Lower Rouser Road. The applicant is present. There was one person opposed earlier. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Go ahead, Mr. Bally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, James Bally on behalf of the applicant here on Z94. This is a case that was on consent, so I'm going to try to be brief to save some time. It is going to be phase 2 of the existing Oaks at Woodlawn, which is off of Woodlawn Drive. You see the site there before you. It's located within a medium-density residential classification, which allows for 2.5 to 5 units per acre. The current zoning on both sides is RA5, which is what this application seeks to have as the category. It also touches the O&I you see there in the lower right-hand corner. Z94 is 10 homes with a density of 2.85. There's going to be a units per acre. There's going to be a pocket park implemented within the subdivision. And it will, as stated before, become phase 2 of the Oaks Woodlawn, which is 3.19 units per acre. And then directly to the south is Wyndham Manor, which is 3.04 units to the acre. And this is just kind of an aerial that overlays over what is there now and where the homes will be built. And because this is an issue that's dealing with this, and you can see it well on this slide, I'm going to go ahead and address it. When the Oaks at Woodlawn came in 2012, it was designed by Brooks Chadwick to have, as you see on the upper right-hand, where the road connects there into this proposed subdivision, was set out as a stub in for when this piece of property of Z94 was developed. But there was an overwhelming, I guess, feedback that I received that the community, the HOAs, no one that I was aware of wanted another curb cut on the Woodlawn Drive. This plans to use the entrance that is already in existence to the Oaks at Woodlawn. And so that is why you see before you not another curb cut. I believe that is the opposition today, is that one person would like the curb cut. The homes that are being planned there are 10 single-family homes, selling price points $900,000 to $1.1 million and up, 4,000 minimum square footage to 5,000 square footage up, with 3-car garages. The majority will have 3-car garages. There may be 2 for design that would have 2-car garages, and this is just some of the architecture this is the current homes in the Oaks at Woodlawn Phase 1, and they are going to match what is already there. So we'll look at one HOA. The landscape plan is filed and made part of the zoning application. It's kind of hard to read looking at it here, but the Oaks has a rock wall along its frontage. We're going to continue that along Woodlawn Drive and obviously not have the curb cut there. The landscaping plan you can see is significant and includes that little park area there that's going to be implemented. We're going to utilize the stormwater detention area and expand that. That's already in existence. There's a voluntary 10-foot buffer against Wyndham Manor. That even though they're RA5, we agreed to do that and replace their fence if, in fact, they all would like that to occur, every homeowner. So very briefly, stipulations. We've already talked about no curb cut. Going to join the mandatory HOA at Oaks at Woodlawn, which already have in place landscaping, pocket parks, and the entrance and other things that are already in place, as you would expect in a subdivision with these price points. We've already talked about the stone wall, already talked about using the detention that is existing and expanding it. We're also going to fence it and then screen it with a decorative wood fence to match what is already there. The homes are 4-sided architecture, as you saw, but the district commissioner will approve all of the final elevations and the landscape buffer that was on the previous slide. And then there are other protections that are timely filed with staff that address certain things that were put to us in writing by both HOAs, and I believe we granted every one of those requests. Staff is yes. I'm not going to go through all of those, other than staff has recommended approval, that it fits into that area, it matches the comprehensive plan, and recommends approval for 10 homes. And we have just asked that you follow your staff's recommendation and recommend approval for Z94. And Mr. Chairman, that may be one of the fastest ones I've done. And I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Bally. I'd like you to repeat that next time you appear before us. That is the quickest I've ever seen you. Okay, let's hear from the opposition at this time, please.
Could you show this? Is that possible? There was another one that he just had up there that I think was that same drawing. Yeah, thank you very much.
Good. Just give us your name, please.
Good morning. My name is Marcia Brenner. I live at the Oaks, the community adjacent to JLM's proposed new community. In good conscience, I could not let this hearing go by without asking your help with 2 extremely important issues relating to the development of JLM's proposal and how it impacts our existing homes. Let me begin by saying I don't object to JLM's desire to build his 10 new homes next door. What I'm addressing is much bigger than the development of his homes. I wish him well and hope he will build beautiful quality homes on his property. Here are the 2 issues I'd like to address. First, I wish to address the subject of streets. With JLM's current plan, all vehicles traveling to the new community will drive down our existing street past our 21 small lot homes to the new JLM community. Our community is a straight road that currently dead ends in a cul-de-sac. The JLM proposal would cut in a new street off our cul-de-sac, then wrap back towards Woodlawn, the original access road. JLM's new street would dead end right beside and before Woodlawn, the original access. I here request your help with having a second access cut into Woodlawn at the end of JLM's line of homes. There are three main reasons I ask for your help with adding a second access from Woodlawn to JLM's proposal. Reason number one, in cases of emergency, ambulances or fire trucks or police cars would need to dodge cars and trucks parked in front of our 21 small lot homes. Then they'd need to take 2 tight turns to get to JLM's homes. If an ambulance or other emergency vehicle needed to take someone to a hospital, the same complex weaving would need to be repeated to get out of the community. Please help us to have a second access onto Woodlawn so vehicles, including emergency vehicles, could quickly move in and out. Reason number two, we have 6 children ages 1 to 6 who live in our cul-de-sac. They play daily in the cul-de-sac as our 21 lots are very, very small. If the new expanded community had 2 ways to get to Woodlawn, it would reduce the number of cars, making it safer for the small children who play in the cul-de-sac. Reason number 3, as our homes are so close to each other and our driveways are so close to each other, I see a log jam occurring if 31 homes only have one entrance exit. The houses closest to the entrance would find it very difficult to back out of their own driveways onto the street when a backflow of cars are waiting to get onto Woodlawn. This would be unnecessarily frustrating and an avoidable bottleneck, at least for our homeowners. The second reason I wish to address, secondly, I wish to address the subject of green space. As proposed, and you can see on the plan, as proposed at this time, JLM has stated his new 10 homes right up against the back of our homes. This means his homes and its windows will hover over our homes and our windows. Both developments have extremely small backyards, so the new homes will be right up against the small backyards of our homes. JLM has also proposed a tree shrubbery-lined green space at the front of his new homes as far as on the far side of the street. I wish to have your help in encouraging JLM to flip his plan so his green space becomes a very pleasant buffer in the middle of our community, making it an improvement to overall community as well as his clients. I here request your help with locating the green space between JLM's new homes and our existing homes. JLM wants to be part of our community, and placing his green space between his homes and our existing homes instead of what he is currently showing will help keep our values, give his clients and all of us more privacy, and improve the overall beauty of the newly expanded community. In summary, first, please help us with a second entrance onto Woodlawn, making our community in safer and easier access. And secondly, please help us locate the green space between JLM's homes and our existing homes to make our property more private and hopefully more valuable. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Brenner. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak to Z94? Okay, not seeing and hearing any. Back to this board. This is also in District 2, so I'll attempt to address this one as well. James, you want to come back up, please? The complaint we heard from Ms. Brenner, or the concern, was that all the traffic will by necessity have to go through one access point. Did you guys consider a second access point, and why was it ruled out?
Well, it would be much cheaper and easier for us to have a curb cut right off of Woodlawn. But there was overwhelming concern in both HOAs that that not occur. So that is why it is not there. There's sufficient turnaround space. It was just overwhelming opposition to another curb cut between Wyndham Manor and the current one that exists for the Oaks now. So that is why she stated we, and I'm not sure there is a we, because everybody else I heard from did not want another curb cut there.
Okay. The implication from Ms. Brenner was that she really did not seem aware that this site would be developed. And now you're looking at what potentially will be homes that will look right down on their property.
It's the exact house, so they can't tower over them and look into them. It's phase 2 of a subdivision. They're exactly matching house for house. If you look on the site plan, the lots match up exactly. So it's basically just phase 2 of the subdivision, the same home, same heights. They won't be looking into them any more than they're looking into the new phase 2.
Okay. Any comments, questions? Anybody? Christie, sure.
I like the idea of connecting the two phases, and we always prefer connectivity, I think, instead of just curb cuts that result in a cul-de-sac and no other way out. But I do think her logic about the additional access makes sense. I understand if no one else in the whole area wants it that way, but I do think her points were well made. And similarly with the 10-foot landscaping being moved, that may or may not ultimately work to the best for the group, but I think was not a bad idea to bring up. And I didn't get the impression that Ms. Brenner wasn't aware the property would be developed. But it's a nice site plan, and I think it'll be a lovely community.
Well, I remember when we zoned this, really both these developments on both sides of this, I remember them well. And the discussion then was that it would be developed.
Absolutely, and in fact, that easement was specifically kept by the developer there for that purpose, and that's why this site plan is the way it is.
Okay.
And one last point about the playing in the street, you can see the pocket park. They will not be able to play in the street, but they can go and play in the park, which is probably safer anyway.
Okay.
Thank you.
Skip.
Yeah, just one additional question. The road that goes through there, that's a county road, is that right?
It's county standards, the county standards road.
Private road.
It's a private road, okay. Okay, I just wanted to understand that.
Yeah, it's built exactly as if it is.
And I understand the desire possibly to have the kids play in the cul-de-sac, but the fact that the park is there, that seems to take care of that, so I feel good about that.
Thank you.
If the majority of the neighbors, if she could get the majority of her neighbors to come to you and say, we really would like to have you open this other road up, doable? Not?
We were willing to do that before we filed the application, but I don't think that's going to occur. I don't think there'll be the votes for that. And in fact, the reason you see Wyndham Manor and the HOA president from Oaks, who was here to observe and has now left, not here, is because I promised them that wouldn't happen, and it's in writing. I think if that was going to happen, you would have 40 people here in opposition.
Okay. Thank you, James. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Okay, appreciate all the comments. Beg pardon? Well, there's not much we can do about that, I think. Okay, I'm going to make a recommendation to approve Z94, subject to all staff comments and recommendations, and subject to the conditions found in the stiff letter from Mr. Valley dated October the 18th. This is his revised letter, October 18th, and received October 26th, and the revised site plan attached with the renderings. Subject to a couple of very minor changes on the stiff letter. Number 3 mentions that no more than 10% of the homes can be for sale. At the end of that sentence, number 3, I'd like to put a semicolon, as overseen, or terms to be overseen and enforceable. I'm sorry, let me start over. Terms of the rental to be overseen and enforced by the HOA. And number 9, I want to add to the end of that, there's one neighbor that is closest to this new road that'll be cut through on the backside at 4562 Oakside Point. I want to put at the end of number 9 that the applicant and builder is responsible for correction of any damage that may occur to 4562 Oakside Point. If his landscaping, grass, so forth, anything else is damaged during the install of that, they need to put it back for him. That would be my only changes. Any other comments, questions? Christie?
That one, I was just trying to find the property you were just talking about. Couldn't that same, would it be appropriate to have that stipulation apply to any other private property besides?
Well, it's the only one that's really
It's the only
affected.
one-
It's the only one that's
Which-
affected.
where
And
is it?
There's a stipulation in here specifically for
What
him,
property are you talking about?
4562. is
What
the
street is he
number.
on? Is he
Uh,
Oakside or?
No, it's this one right here. Yeah,
It's not
James,
a big deal. I just wanted to make sure we weren't providing a protection for somebody, for one person that needed to be provided for others
This
as
is the
well.
lady's house that spoke here today, and it is adjacent to the easement that is owned. And that was put in there to address a concern by the president of HOA. If we got outside the easement and damaged anything, that we would, of course, fix that, and we have no problem with that. But that's what that house is.
Okay.
okay.
I
And
just didn't
I'm not sure we have the
understand it,
right
that's all.
date on the letter.
But it wasn't exactly stipulated that you would make those repairs, so I'm just adding that in.
We're
I know
fine with
that you will, but
Right.
let's put it in writing so there's no question.
Okay.
Do you want to help us with the date of the letter? Because I think it might not have been said properly
Yeah,
in the.
it's
yeah, October
October
18th.
26th, that letter.
Right. The letter you sent was received on the 26th, but it was still dated October the 18th. That's why I worded it the way that I did.
Yeah, let's make sure John has got the,
No, it's October 26th.
yeah, it's October
October.
26th. It may have, we had a couple different versions because the HOA requested something again. So I apologize if you've got 18, but I think it's 26.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Thank
We
you.
got it, we got it. Thank you very much, James. Anything else?
I had just one question about
Okay.
your, do you really think it's necessary to put in there, about the rental in million-dollar homes? I don't think
He
we're
put it
gonna,
in- he put
I
it in
don't
there.
think we're gonna have a lot of rental homes in million-dollar houses and that, so I think we could probably take that out.
Wouldn't hurt. Somebody, we never stipulate who oversees that.
It's an
And-
HOA, it has
Well,
to be.
it's never stipulated.
But it always is HOA, it's not us.
Well, let's stipulate it then.
No, we don't want to stipulate, that should be the HOA, not the county.
County doesn't enforce
Exactly, HOA.
And
rental
that-
rules.
And that's
and-
why I said the HOA would. John, what do you think?
Ultimately, it's gonna be the county that enforces it, once the HOA, or if the HOA does not enforce it. So, it's fine if there's a 10% maximum of rentals, because it's just one house.
So you don't really need it.
So if the HOA fails to do their duty, the county could step in and would step in
For that one house.
for that one house.
Oh, please. For that $1 million house.
I might want to rent it. I see no harm in leaving it in, so I think I'll just leave it in. And the kids can't play on the street. Okay. Anything else? John?
Could we just clarify that your motion also includes attachment A submitted by Mr. Valley on October 31st, 2016?
We can do that.
Okay.
Clerk has that. Okay. Anything else? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please vote.
Second.
Who was the second, by the way? Judy was the second. Okay, got it. Okay, thank you very much. What's next, John?
Yes, sir. Rezoning case Z95, Carroll and Carroll Properties, request rezoning from O&I to OS for the purpose of a warehouse in land lot 278 of the 16th District. The property is located on the west side of Kent Road, north of Kent Drive. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed, rezoning case Z95? Let the record show there's one person opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Covenants. Oh, even since the 90s, most of them. Mhm. And the county, I don't want to be involved as a. I don't think.
I bet we never have.
If it's zoning, still cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Good morning.
Give us your name, please.
I'm Jamie Carroll with Carroll and Carroll Properties and Fontas Water, which is the business that occupies the property located at 3929 Canton Road. For 30 years, we have operated a water distribution facility located at this location. Since 1982, we've been operating pretty much in the same manner that we are operating today. In 1992, there was a plan submitted to zoning, and there were some stipulations granted that we're currently operating under today, and we've been approved to continue to operate under those stipulations. So we're not here to talk about moving. We're talking about trying to get rezoned so we can build a warehouse to enclose our current operations. Let's see here. This building that's existing, the existing, yeah. This existing two-story building is our brick. It's an old house that's been converted to an office. This was the proposed addition that was approved in '92. This whole building was on septic, and in the spring we started working to install a sewer line to tie this into sewer and then start working on the new addition. That is when we got some pushback from some of our residential neighbors behind us in regard to, I guess, code issues. So I want to, and that's when I was told that we needed to rezone, even though we're allowed to operate with the stipulations provided for OS zoning. We actually need to be zoned OS to build the new warehouse and enclose our current outdoor operations. And I'll show you actually, I'll put that up. Yeah, this is our current operation. So pretty much the house is our office, and we do all of our what you could call warehouse space out of these tractor trailers. And we have delivery trucks that we load out on the lot to the right there. So what we're proposing is building a new warehouse to enclose all of that, which after talking to some of the neighbors that were concerned behind us, that was what they would like to see happen as well, just to improve the noise and the visual appearance of the property. When I met with the staff earlier, I've got their recommendations here, and I wanted to address some of those as well. It was the staff's opinion that our rezoning proposal will permit a use that is not suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent and nearby properties. We have an extremely good relationship with our commercial neighbors, and also wanted to note that 3 of our immediate neighbors are also warehouses. If I could put up another. So this is Canton Road. It is full of distribution centers, warehouses. These are some of our immediate neighbors. If you look at the second row of pictures, Actually, not that one. All right, these are our neighbors on Canton Road here. Our immediate neighbors, and these all back up to the same residential neighborhood that was in question about our proposed warehouse. So that addresses, the next thing they, is their opinion that there will be an adverse effect on the usability of adjacent or nearby property. Again, like I said, we have an excellent relationship with our nearby neighbors. They use our facility for additional overflow parking at the daycare, which is a Montessori school next door to us. And on Canton Road, next to these other distribution centers and warehouses, there's another daycare center. So we kind of have daycare centers on each end of us, and it hasn't been an issue, and it's been this way for over 30 years. It's also the staff's opinion that that our proposal will result in excessive or burdensome use in existing streets. Again, we've been there operating the same trucks, and in fact, if we're allowed to build this warehouse, our 18-wheelers that deliver our product that come in throughout the day now, or in the mornings, a lot of times during peak traffic times, we'll be able to schedule those to come in at non-peak times because we'll have a building to warehouse the product that they're bringing in. Let's see. They also mentioned that, that we've been there operating as is, but there's been issues with neighbors, and primarily that was one neighbor who actually is no longer living in the neighborhood. But, and again, that was more with code enforcement issues when we started taking some of the trees out to put the sewer line in. I want to show you what our proposed plan is. Okay. All right, so our proposed plan is basically to build this new warehouse right here, which actually just encloses our current operations. It doesn't add to, it doesn't add anything there. It just encloses what we're currently doing outside. With the previous proposal that I had up that was approved, it does give us some of the space we need for product storage, but it doesn't address the loading of the trucks outside, which makes noise, and operation of the forklifts. With this building here, everything, all the truck loading and forklift operations would take place inside. So I think that would be a benefit to the neighbors and all the surrounding residential neighbors, which back up right here. There was also a concern that our new addition was going to encroach on the landscape buffers that were set forth in the 1992 proposal. And we did maintain the 50-foot landscape buffer on the western property line and the 30-foot landscape buffer on the northern property line on these residential lots right here. And then I want to show you what we're actually looking at. And that is currently, you saw the first picture as it is today, and then that's what we're proposing to put in. There was a concern about the dock doors facing Canton Road, but again, we already have that, and we're approved to continue to operate as is. With this new building, we'll actually be able to eliminate some of the tractor trailers that are currently parked there. Now, with the 3 docks, we're actually completely removing 1 dock. There's 4 currently, and there at any given time would only probably be 1 trailer parked there as opposed to 3 or 4. We also have some storage trailers that would be eliminated with this building as well. We're in an overlay district, and I think this addresses all of those concerns as well. So that is all I have. I hope that I've given you enough information to consider an approval on it.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks.
Jamie. Let's hear from the opposition now, please.
Hello, for the record, I'm Carol Brown with Canton Road Neighbors. Have had no discussion with the applicant about this and was not able to make contact with the neighborhood behind. I did speak to the resident who had lived in place for many years, Ms. Thomas, who has now moved. And she says that the property was vacant for 7 years, apparently. But have talked to residents of Canterbury 1 and also a resident on Dover Downs. We have concerns about this. I think it's a very difficult case to make a decision on. They have been operating for many years, but this is one of those older uses on Canton Highway that really just doesn't quite fit into the changing picture. OS is not really a proper use in a neighborhood activity center as a full-blown warehouse distribution. In the OS zoning district, a warehouse use is allowed as a special exception in neighborhood activity center. However, it's very limited. It's called limited office services establishments, provided that no single individual use or structure shall exceed 5,000 square feet. And for the purposes of the section, limited office services shall mean professional offices that include warehouse or storage space ancillary to the primary use. And architectural style design to be approved by the BOC, well, that would have to follow the Canton design guidelines. This use would not allow for semi-tractor trailers to be on site continuously. The distribution center 2197 that was referenced is several miles to the south and is well behind Canton Highway. It's accessed by a long drive, and those are office warehouses, and they are brick facade. And it's a very different type situation. There is a long history of code enforcement issues. I know that the warehouse, requested warehouse hours of operation from 6:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, because of the close proximity to a residential neighborhood, should be more like 7 or 7:30 to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, and no warehouse operations on the weekends. Personally, I think that staff did review this and take into consideration the code enforcement issues and the constant history of problems with the neighbors. This may be a partial solution, but it's going to be one of those very difficult decisions that I'm happy not to have to vote on. We do support staff recommendation for denial. However, should this be approved, we would ask that the applicable section of the code for limited office services be applied, Canton design guidelines, no semi-tractor trailer parking overnight, hours of operation for the warehouse, 7:30 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, and all other staff recommendations were not in conflict. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone else wishing to speak to Z95? Okay, it's back to this board. Christie, I believe this one is yours as well. You want to lead our discussion?
Yes, thank you. First, I just want to have a question for John Peterson, just for clarification. Mr. Carroll kept saying they're approved to operate as they operate today already with their current zoning. I don't understand that.
It was zoned in 1992 to OS for this water distribution business that's been here for many, many years. I think the Carrolls have owned the property for many years before that even started. So the 1992 zoning, they were allowed to be here. There was a lot of conditions on it regarding bufferings, hours, and things like that. And they were permitted to put about a 2,600 square foot addition onto the property. And that's the first picture that Mr. Carroll showed, that old picture of 1992. They were allowed to build a small addition, but this addition is 8,000 square
Right.
feet. So this is substantially larger than was approved in the past.
But they're currently zoned O and I,
That's right.
not OS, okay. And then the trailers parked and coming and going, is that allowed under their current zoning?
It's a grandfathered situation right now because it was zoned O and S, but there's this untypical condition where it reverted back to O and I after a certain period of time.
Okay,
So it's zoned O and I, but it's grandfathered to be the water distribution center.
okay, so the use is grandfathered and the trailers that are parked there for storage, I guess, are grandfathered as far as we know.
Mhm.
Okay. The code enforcement situation, I know it wasn't just the one neighbor who's now moved. In fact, I got an email this morning from somebody else who mentioned that. And there were others that had agreed that there had been some issues, and it seems to be related to the growth and increased uses on the property. And I understand that's why you're asking for 8,000 square feet probably. But, and that kind of indicates to me what the staff comments do, that perhaps what started as the business on the site has outgrown this 1.89 acre site. In addition, I didn't see on that site plan that you provided, or on the one that's in our book, maybe they're the same, there is no delineated buffer. You mentioned a 50-foot buffer and a 30-foot buffer, but I don't see that called out on the site plan.
On the new site plan?
And that goes back to the 1992 zone.
It's on
Okay.
it is on this one here.
I don't, maybe I just can't read it. I'll ask him.
It's not on.
Well, he's getting that. I have one follow-up question for John on I saw a lot of outdoor storage going on with water bottles and that on the property. Is that allowed and grandfathered?
It's supposed to be within the building.
It is.
Okay.
That's just that's what we pull out of those trailers in the building to load the trucks, and that's the operation that we conduct in the mornings and afternoons and throughout the day that then is put away in the evenings.
But
Okay.
it's something
And
that
that is-
shouldn't be out there at all at any
Well,
time.
it's stuff they're actually working on.
It's
not out
actively
there,
working.
not out there for days.
It's not
Okay.
storage, it's product that's
Okay.
coming off the trucks and moving.
So
And
that,
on this, you can see that here's the 50-foot buffer and the 30-foot buffer.
okay, so that's not what's in our book, and neither is
And on the new,
this is the old, you're showing us the 1992 plan.
that's correct.
Okay,
And
then
it's
the-
it's drawn on the new plan. There might have been a revised,
There's a
it's in this
building.
area. I don't think it's actually, but this area is more than 50 feet. This is about 80 feet here, I think.
But it's not labeled buffer, that I can tell. I'm just pointing out that that needs to be
Right,
corrected.
and that is there and it's being maintained and we can definitely get that added back in. And in fact, to address Mrs. Thomas's concerns, the buffer was added to and a row of Leland cypresses were planted across there as well. To address the code enforcement issues that you
I don't have any other
Oh,
questions
okay.
right now. That's okay. Does anybody else have a question for Mr. Carroll? Okay. Do you,
I guess it just strikes me that, I understand this has been here for a long time, since the 90s, and it's grandfathered in. But I also understand the comment that it just doesn't seem to fit with where Canton Road is going. And that's largely because of the temporary outdoor storage, what you're going to fix with the new 8,000 square foot building. But it's also, I would think, principally due to the fact that you've got the semi-truck sitting there for probably hours at least. I know when I was there were 4 trailers sitting there.
The trailers,
Yeah. And I guess you're storing product in those trailers, right?
Some of them, but they actively go back and forth to our
Yeah.
plant in North Georgia.
So
And that's what,
what I'm just wondering is, if this, I'm not suggesting it ought to be approved, but if it were to be approved, would it make sense to extend that building at least over where the trucks are so that they would be able to back into an enclosed space and just not be visible once they're inside?
Well, that is, as far as the delivery trucks with this new building, we will be able to pull them inside of the building to load them. The trailers, the 48-foot trailers that you're referring to, that will be cut down considerably. They'll come, make a delivery, and then leave, not leaving the trailer behind.
And you said that that would be possible during the night, once you had the building, because you don't have to worry about the
Right.
security of the materials.
Correct.
But I'm just asking, would it make any sense to enclose, to add another, if it's 8,000 square feet for that building, to add another roughly 4,000 square feet to enclose that loading, the truck loading parking area?
For the semi-truck.
For the semis,
trailers.
right. I mean, I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's the space, the civil engineer would have to address that as far as.
What's the point in doing that? I mean, it still faces Canton Road.
I know, but it would cover it up and enclose it, that's all. That would maybe partially mitigate the concern that it
Could I
doesn't
make
fit.
one more comment?
Yeah, I think that's the bottom line, is they've outgrown the space.
What were the actual complaints? Christie, do we know?
It was parking on, I'm sorry. It was the truck activity, it was parking on unpaved surfaces, the eyesore of the outdoor storage from time to time.
Noise.
I don't have a copy of it, but it's just the level of commercial activity or light industrial type activity adjacent to a residential area, which is the same as what we've had in other areas on Canton Road, where we have seen what started as kind of an office warehouse center turn into dumpsters banging at night, and trucks coming in and out, and backup alarms and things like that. And the photos that he showed of his neighbors, one of them was Castile, and I don't want to call names, but we just went through a whole situation with them. And the gymnastics center is not a distribution center. The sign shop is a very small little business, so it's not comparable to what's being proposed today. The daycare is different, so I think Fontas is a good business, but I really feel like 1.89 acres is too small to be doing what they're trying to do, and I'm glad it's growing, apparently. But I don't think this level of distribution and warehouse is appropriate on this property, and especially not with all the loading taking place on the front side where it can't be buffered from Canton Road. It's in a neighborhood activity center, and we really have to remember that. I mean, it's not just, even if it was a special exception, it couldn't be more than 5,000 square feet. And we're looking at something that's 8,000 square feet proposed. So, even if we wanted to consider it as a special exception use, it's way far and above what we would want to see. We don't have a stip ladder. I still can't read on this new site plan that there's a designated buffer. It might exist, but it's not labeled. So those are some things that I have an issue with. I really feel that they would benefit from a new location. And I think that the staff recommendations are appropriate. I support the staff recommendation for denial. But in the meantime, between now and the Board of Commissioners meeting, I would tweak the site plan, and I would think about putting together a stipulation letter that includes all of these commitments that you read out, and hours of operation, and different things that would protect the neighborhood, because you talked about it in the presentation, but we don't have anything that I know of in writing.
Okay.
And that's important. So, and I don't think, I feel like we try really hard to create solutions for businesses that want to locate in areas where they really probably don't necessarily fit, and I don't want to do that. And I can make a motion unless there's some other conversation.
It occurs to me that adding the building, and I know it's 8,000 square feet as opposed to 5,000, but adding the building, and the reason I asked specifically what were the problems that were expressed to code enforcement, adding the building might seem to resolve most of those complaints. I just make that statement.
But then we do things like that, and the next thing
I
you
know,
know,
I
it
know, I
grows
hear you.
again.
I know.
And 18-wheelers at night is a problem, so.
And I was just
We
going
can
to add,
stipulate that. We can solve that. though.
And we
Well,
don't
it's-
have anything to go on.
I know, we don't
as far
have-
as a
well,
stipulation.
and I was going to add the 5,000 square feet, I believe, would include the existing house and the existing addition. So it's not like you can add another 5,000 square feet. There's probably already 3,000 square foot there.
It would be 10 altogether.
Oh, it would be 10 altogether. Okay,
Okay, well,
So that's double.
okay.
Um,
So they already have, you know, a couple thousand there, so.
in my opinion, it's just not a large enough piece of property to be doing all of this. That's all. But, so at this point, I would rather just support the staff and make a motion to deny or recommend denial for C-95.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. There we go. Okay. All righty, good luck. I think you heard from Christie what she would like to see you bring to the BOC hearing. Maybe that'll work in your favor. Thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna plow on through and try to finish this up. We only have, what, John, a couple more cases?
Yep.
Okay, let's go ahead. We're not gonna take a lunch break. We'll just keep going. What's next, please?
Yes, sir. Rezoning case Z96, Cobb County Board of Commissioners requests rezoning from NS to NRC for the purpose of retail, office, and restaurant in landmark 14 of the 17th District. Property is located at the northwest intersection of Austell Road and Wanda Circle, north of Windy Hill Road. The applicant is present. Earlier, there are 3 people who are opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
We weren't laughing at you. We were laughing at the fact that John has to make this presentation because this is Cobb County property. Were you sworn in, sir?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Good morning, Board. Mr. Chair, my name is John Peterson. I am the Zoning Division Manager for Cobb County, and I will be representing the Cobb County Board of Commissioners today. By way of background, the property is a .22 acre piece of property on Austell Road that has a 1-story all-brick 2-bay firehouse on it. According to tax records, the building was built in or around 1950. The building was used as a firehouse until a new firehouse was built around the corner on Windy Hill Road in approximately 2011. The county decided to sell the property and declared it surplus after the new fire station became operational. After that, the county's real estate agent has tried to market this property for 3 or 4 years, but it's been unsuccessful so far. In that time, the county received interest from from businesses that are light automobile repair, or used tire businesses, or bail bonds businesses, and a mission station, and other businesses that the county does not desire to see any more of on Austell Road. The county is exempt from zoning. Any new user of the property would not be exempt from zoning, and they would need to come into the zoning process to bring the property up to county code as far as the future land use map and the zoning. As a means to guide potential buyers and to fix this zoning problem, the Board of Commissioners filed a zoning application in August to NRC for this property. To further guide potential users or buyers, a number of conditions were crafted on the consent agenda that prohibited certain uses that the board just doesn't want to see. And I'm sure the board would add additional uses also when it came up to them for a vote. Further, the county is aware that the adjoining property owner, which is a bail bondsman, is concerned about our traffic trespassing on his property since our property is so small and there's a limited number of parking spaces along Wanda Circle. To fix this, the staff suggested that there be a fence put in between the 2 properties to prevent the trespass onto their property. And there is a mechanism in place to remove that fence if the property owners can come to an agreement or if the property is assembled with their property for an overall new development. The requested zoning district is NRC, which is consistent with the future land use map, and the district is consistent with newer zoning districts along Austell Road. The staff would like to ask the Planning Commission to recommend approval to the Board of Commissioners for the zoning application, and we're here for any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Let's hear from the opposition now, please.
Good morning, and thank you for your time. My name is John Schramfer. This is my brother Don and my sister Vicki Norman. We own Tarkington LLC, which owns the adjacent property marked in orange, in yellow. That's our property, and it surrounds the surplus fire station. Our concern is any changes would possibly adversely affect our property. We've got an ongoing business. My father moved the family here in 1963. He retired at Dobbins Air Force Base. The family is about 35 members in and around Cobb County. And we've got a very successful tenant there that's doing very, very well. We don't want any encumbrance to our property. The surplus fire station property has some serious problems. Parking, what can go in there, there's a lot of restrictions, but the overriding sentiment is it could adversely affect our property. And we've been long-term taxpayers and good citizens, and we just don't want to be injured. So that's my case. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, John. Anyone else wishing to comment on Z96? Okay, it's back to this body. You can have it. Well, I'll leave that up to Galt. You might want to stay there until Galt decides, but this is District Force of Galt will handle our discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I just wanted to ask you, in the zoning stipulations, it was stipulated that there would be a fence put along the south and west boundaries of the fire station property, which would basically be along your property lines, which would prevent people from intruding onto your property. Does that?
If I understand that,
and you can see him moving the hand right
yeah,
now.
if I understand that, the orange line around the surplus fire station, and then Wanda, which is the adjacent road, if that were the case, that would mitigate the problems I perceive for our property and our tenant, which is doing a great job. And we just spent a bunch of money upgrading the property, new siding, a lot of other things. Father died 20-something years ago. Mom died last year. So we took it over, got it fixed up. We're going to take care of the property. So to answer your question, if that were the case, that, in my estimation, would mitigate what I can see as a problem for us as a adjacent landowner.
Okay, yeah, so that's what's in the stipulations, that unless somebody came up with an agreement with you, they would have to put a fence basically along the adjoining property
Now, would that be
lines.
the buyer or the county?
It would be the buyer, because the county's not going to do anything with it. So it would be before they could get a certificate of occupancy to start using that building.
Okay.
The fence would have to be installed.
Yeah, and I really honestly think that the potential for someone buying that property is severely restricted because there's no parking.
It is.
You know, it almost have to be a one-customer tattoo parlor.
Yeah, the kind of use, and that's part of the problem with marketing it, but, you know, and maybe somebody would approach you about acquiring either easement or part of your property to expand the parking, which may be a benefit to you. But that would be something that would be a private deal with you. It wouldn't be.
And honestly, we've thought about that and we're absolutely not interested.
Okay, okay. And
So
that's fine.
again,
That's
whatever
your-
zoning changes, it's our voice that we're protected because we've heavily invested in Cobb County and it's a wonderful place. And I'm impressed. I'm not a professional speaker, but I've watched Channel 23 from time to time and I loved your process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think the fence that's proposed is going to address your issue.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you very much. You can have a seat unless,
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, and I'll just also note that there are steps saying it won't be a light automotive repair. They won't be allowed to put that in there, which often requires a lot of parking. It won't be another bail bondsman or check cashing business or anybody who sells alcohol. So, the Board of Commissioners is trying, or at least we're trying to be very cognizant of the kind of business that goes there so it can be a good neighbor to you. Sure, I'll let you come up and say. You have to come up to the mic,
You
though.
must come up here and you must give us your name
I'm Don
and
Tramford.
were you sworn in?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
now
I'm
give us-
Don Tramford, youngest of the siblings. But, long-term, we want to take care of our property, but we're very willing to work with an assemblage type situation for the future, which I think in that area, I think it would look a lot better in the long run to have something big and professional at that intersection, because you have a school and you have kind of two empty lots on the other side, and
Right.
we just became owners of that property, and so we have a long-term vision as well. So we want to work with the county in any way we can.
Okay, great. And you guys may want to consider purchasing the property.
I wanna know
That's
what's-
up to you, though. That's nothing to do with our decision, but it seems like a natural thought. So,
I want to know what's going to happen to the old fire truck that's parked there.
you want the
It's
fire truck,
inside
don't
the
you?
building. It's been there for decades, but anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Well, given that the staff comments already call for that fencing and that, I don't think I need to do anything additional there. So I'm just going to make a motion that we recommend approval to NRC with all staff comments and recommendations. And I'll just make a slight addition that the fence is to be installed before any certificate of occupancy is issued, just to make that very clear. And, and put it back on the consent.
For the
hopefully,
BOC.
For the BOC.
Okay, so you have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Register your vote, please. Okay, thank you, folks. Frankly, that building should be torn down. There's not much you can do sitting that close to the street, but that's not our decision. Thank you, folks. Let John resume his role. Thank you, Jason, for filling in. You did a great job. What's next, John?
Rezoning case Z101, Providence Homes LLC, request rezoning from R30 to R20 OC for the purpose of a single-family residential subdivision in land lots 273 and 274 of the 20th District. Property is located on the southwest side of Burnt Hickory Road, west of Ackworth Due West Road. Earlier, there's 23 people here opposed. If the applicant is present, all those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is John Moore, and I'm here representing Providence Homes with regard to this rezoning request on Burnt Hickory. This was one of the more difficult cases for me to write up what I was going to say in the order of which I was going to say it. I got halfway through about 4 times and threw them away and started all over. So I hope I've struck the right one, but it's just with all the comments and all the stuff that has been said about this zoning, it was very difficult to know what to address when. I want to try to reserve a couple of minutes at the end for Mr. Latham, the Civil War historian, to speak. This is a tract, 87.639 acres It's currently zoned R30, and we're asking for an R20 OSC. It's land use plan is BLDR 0 to 2 units an acre, and this is if you round it, it's 1.44, but people have been using 1.43. And this is an open space community. There's been a lot of discussion about that, and the purpose of open space communities as set forth in our ordinance are basically twofold. It's preserve floodplain and wetland areas from adverse effect and protect historic areas, and we have both of those in this case. There's also been references to other OSCs who clear cut and didn't do what they're supposed to do, and I expect to hear that today. I think it's wrong to compare one developer and say the same thing is going to happen with another. Mr. David Swales is a longtime developer and builder in Cobb County. He developed and built the overlook at Marietta Country Club right across the street, and the houses I'm going to show you are from there, and this is the same type house that's going to be up here. And he's almost finished, believe it or not. He's been doing the left side or the estate lot side. But we're proposing 100 lots total in this. And this is actually at 1.44 is almost exactly halfway between the standard recognized density of an R30 of 1.1 and the standard recognized density of R20 of 1.75. It's almost exactly in between. And this has 36 acres of open space, which is 41%. And the comment's also been made that all of this open space is floodplain. Only 18 acres, half of it is floodplain, which includes a private cemetery. So it's not all floodplain. And we did not seek the OSC bonus, which is allowed on an R20. It would be 134 lots. So we haven't tried to make this as dense as we could make it. We've tried not to do that, matter of fact. And I think that the point being, Mr. Swales, these lots are primarily 100 feet in front, and the reason for that is to see, so you can have side entry garages. Most of these houses will have 3-car garages. I'm gonna hand these to Cornelius to put up, just to run through. These are the type homes that are gonna be here. They are a minimum 2,800 square feet, ranging up to 3,800 and greater. Price range in the 450s to 650s and greater. And you can just roll them through. It's fine. I want to go to the site plan as soon as he finishes this last one and talk about that briefly. Is that the last one? Okay, just on back on the site plan, Cornelius. And what I want to talk about is, I've also heard this will be a precedent-setting thing in this area. Number one, I don't believe that any zoning case is a precedent-setting for any other piece of property. I think they all stand on their own, and there is no precedent. But even if you were to assume for purposes of argument, let me show you what you'd have to do. This is Burnt Hickory Road here. And if you start over here, this is Mr. Kemp's property, the seller's property. And as you come around on this side, on the west side, you've got Dominion Christian School, you've got the elementary school, you've got Lost Mountain Middle School, and then you've got Harrison High School all behind it. So on 3 of the 4 sides, you've got a seller's property, you've got all schools, and then you've got Mr. James Watkins' property over here, and I'll talk about him in a minute. And he's the only adjoining homeowner to this property that there is. And in the land use plan, schools are shown in blue on your map, your land use map, which means public institutional. And as we found out in a Vinings zoning case, it was not mine, I took it over later, but that has a retail component in it, believe it or not, that you can use. So it's public institutional. Now, if somebody else wants to come out here in any of this other property and do what we're proposing to do here, they'd have to show those same kind of effects zoning-wise on their property that we have on ours, which I don't think you can do, to be surrounded by schools, the seller, and one homeowner. And while I'm speaking about that, Mr. Watkins and I met week before last to talk about this case and try to work together. He was out of town last week, and we share one thing in common anyway. We both were disappointed in Georgia's performance on Saturday, but other than that, and we're going to continue to talk after today. That was what we agreed to do when we last met, going towards the Board of Commissioners meeting. And he's a very nice gentleman, and I certainly want to do that. The last thing I want to talk about, and I've kind of gone through this, I want to say in here too, this is a much different OSC plan as well because it has minimum 15,000 square foot lots, which is an R15. But most West Cobb OSCs have a minimum 10,000. This is 15. And again, the reason is because of the wide frontage you need to get these houses in there. And have average lot size of 18,390 square feet. For an OSC, these are extremely large. And you'll also notice that the amenity package was intentionally put on the other side away from Mr. Watkins' property. So he doesn't have that. He's got a buffer down his property and some open space adjacent to that. We think the plan looks great the way it is. We have a Civil War trench that we're trying to protect that comes in from Burnt Hickory and runs into a ridge line and is stopped there. And that's what Mr. Latham's going to talk about. Your professional staff recommended approval. And I wanted to quote from several of what they said. The first thing they said is that the rezoning will permit a use that's suitable in view of the use and development of adjacent nearby properties. Secondly, they say the applicant's proposal has a density that is compatible with adjacent properties, and 41% of the property will be open space. It's the staff opinion that this comports with and is in conformity with the land use plan. And lastly, they say the proposal is consistent with single-family uses in the area and is consistent with the future land use map. So they come very strongly supportive of this plan and this rezoning. We think it is the proper one. I'm going to stop here and I'll answer any questions you have. Mr. Swales is here, and I ask Mr. Latham to come on up. Need to hurry. Can you stop the clock? Okay, thank you. I thought he was sitting right here. I'm sorry. I'm glad you stopped the clock. He would never made it in time.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm William Latham. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Cobb County Civil War Roundtable and many of our members that are concerned, as you might expect, about preserving Civil War heritage in the county. A couple of days ago, I was fortunate enough to be able to visit the site and be given a tour of the site by one of the descendants, Tommy Kemp. We looked at the trench line and the family cemetery. They're both very significant and very worth preserving, well worth preserving. We'll be talking with the developer about the width and of the buffer for the trench line and the landscaping perhaps around the trench line. Regarding any fencing that goes around the trench, we would suggest that perhaps it may be consistent to make it the same kind of trench that you put around the cemetery. You know, that would be up to you. And as we've done with other developers, we would suggest that a stipulation for a historic marker be included, and we'll be glad to work with the developer on the text, casting, delivery, and installation of that marker. As you know, we've done that before, and that's worked out very well. So we look forward to working with them. And again, we strongly support the preservation of both the sites. I've seen them both. The family cemetery is a pioneer cemetery for the county, as you know. So it's well worth preserving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latham. Let's hear from the opposition at this time, Z101. Come on up.
First of all, I'd like to submit a petition with about 137 names on it. If you could, please. My name is James Watkins, and I've lived
on the property adjacent to the subject property at 4251 Burnt Hickory Road for 14 years. I represent the neighbors in opposition to this, and we actually request respectfully that you recommend denial for 4 fundamental reasons. The first is that R20 OSC is not consistent with the surrounding zoning, nor is it consistent with existing developments. Number 2, the rezoning to OSC would destroy the rural character of Burnt Hickory Road, and I'll explain that a little bit more. Number 3, this particular proposition actually fails to meet some of the key criteria and the intent of the OSC code. And number 4, the higher density will negatively affect traffic and overcrowding in our schools. We'll take a look at the zoning map to start with, and Z101 is in the very middle. It's in a gold outline. And if you take a moment to look at Burnt Hickory Road, and I've just marked it with X's, about 3/4 of a mile in each direction, where you turn off of Ackworth due west, go past the property, maybe another mile or so is what we're talking about. You'll see that almost all of that, I mean, the overwhelming zoning is R30 or denser. If you look on the east side where it turns off Ackworth due west road, there's actually 2 R20s. The one on the north side is already developed with lots and houses on them in excess of 1 acre each, and the R20 below that is already developed with a church and elementary school, so that won't ever be developed R20. There is 1 house on the small R20 strip on the other side of the road. Saddlebrook Farms in the upper left-hand corner is developed R40, Burnt Hickory Registry, R30 PRD. Burnt Hickory Township is R30, Due West Hills is R30, and if you look below it, Laurel Place and Carriage Gates are also R30. So I'd like to point out there is really no R20 or R20 OSC development on that stretch of Burnt Hickory Road. And to put 100 15,000 square foot lots right in the middle of that would really be an injustice to those who've invested in these properties. It has a particular look and feel and characteristic, and that rural look and feel of Burnt Hickory is defined by the following: the 87-acre Kemp Cattle Farm, which of course is the subject of Z101. There's an 18-acre horse farm on the other side of the street. We have a private school in that section of street with spacious woods and a lake. And here's the big one: 25 homes on lots of 1 acre or more in a 1.5 mile section of Burnt Hickory Road. 11 of those homes are on 3 acres or more. So we're talking about estate homes. 8 of those homes are on 10 acres or more. So as you can see, this is an area of Cobb County that is characterized by large lots and people who've invested in estate homes. To put 100 homes clustered on 15,000 square foot lots would really ruin that low density, rural look and feel of what we've got here. I'll show you what it looks like. The same demarcation points on Burnt Hickory Road. I zoomed in a little bit so that you could see the lot sizes, but on this particular slide, we've identified the 25 homes on Burnt Hickory Road that are on the 1 acre or larger lots, and the numbers tell the size of the lot. If you look in the upper left-hand corner, you got a 12.8 acre estate. There are 5 1-acre lots developed with homes, a 15-acre horse farm as you move from left to right, a 19-acre estate. Burnt Hickory Trace is R30, and that really validates the demand for large lots. These houses are selling, and those are pretty recent developments. A 29.5 acre estate, 12.8 acre estate. In the bottom right-hand corner, there are 6 houses clustered in the woods around that particular lake. They're kind of hard to see. Basically, what you see when you drive through there is the forest. And 1.11 and 1.2 on the far right-hand side are the lots in that R20 zone that have already been developed with houses on them that are 1 acre or larger. Again, to drop 115,000 square foot lots in an area that is really zoned for 30,000 square foot lots would really be an injustice. Let's take a look down the street. That's the estate home on 12.8 acres. Go down the street a little more. That's one of the homes developed R40. There are 5 of them in a row right there at the corner of Burnt Hickory. This is the estate home on a horse farm. That's the street view. That is the remainder of the 15-acre horse farm. His neighbor has a 19-acre estate. That's the pasture area and barn, and that's the home
for that 19-acre estate. Across the street, Dominion Christian High School, that's all you see. You don't even see the high school. It's woods. That's another view. You can see their lake and more woods there. That's a view of the Kemp Farm, which is the subject of this. And that's another view of Kemp Farm from my house, which is adjacent to Kemp Farm, and you can just see the open spaces. And you can also see there's really no tree buffer or anything in between my house and the Kemp Farm. This is my house, which is a state home on 13.9 acres. And this is the neighbor's house on 10 acres. So that's just representative of what you see when you drive down the street. And we want to keep that look and feel. To put 15,000 square foot lots, and that's what's specified on the site plan that was distributed to us, is 15,000 square foot lot average, would really ruin that look and feel, would really destroy that look and feel, and we're looking to preserve that. I'll turn for the next couple of slides to just some real issues with the site plan itself. When I look at the site plan, I look at it in two halves, and on the right-hand side, I see an R15-like neighborhood. The OSC code says that it should reduce the perceived density by maximizing the number of houses that have direct access to and views of the open space, and it really doesn't do that. These houses are clustered together on the eastern side of the property. And yes, the floodplain is a lot of the open space, but it's not all of it. But you see a lot of the open space is adjacent to the floodplain. It really doesn't open it up for any other views or access for any other houses, so it really misses that part of the requirement of the open space code. Also, around the perimeter, there should be larger lots to be more consistent with the surrounds. If you want to look at it, that hasn't been done. Larger lots in the middle, what you see, again, has that look and feel of R15. There are really problems with the buffer on the right-hand side. The site plan omits a power line right-of-way. And the significance of that is the OSC code also says that you may be required to put in a privacy buffer. And that certainly would be the case. As you see, my house is just to the right of that property line. You can see the right-of-way on my property line. And with the right-of-way, there's actually no space to plant Leland cypress or anything, no kind of buffer. So that's unacceptable and should be unacceptable to anyone. That's a picture. And I'll turn it over to Melissa O'Brien for traffic. Don't know.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Melissa O'Brien, and I speak on behalf of West Cobb Advocate. I would like to submit to you today a petition of 756 signatures from our online petition. These signatures are the voices of hundreds of people who are pleading with you to stop rezoning West Cobb, to address the infrastructure issues we have, and to preserve what is left of West Cobb before it is gone. Thank you. According to staff comments for this application, traffic studies are based upon the 2008 traffic county data taken by Cobb County DOT for Burnt Hickory Road, but this is only for Burnt Hickory Road. The traffic study does not reflect the additional homes that have been built in the past 8 years, nor the additional homes that are slated to be built, an additional 175 homes on Paul Samuel Road around the corner that have not even begun yet. If we think traffic is bad now in West Cobb, it continues to get worse with the unchecked development in West Cobb and Paulding County. Because of poor planning, we still have to wait until at least the 2022 SPLOST to see any major road improvement for our area. We are tired of hearing from DOT representatives that there are no significant traffic problems in our community, or that the road can handle 1,000 additional car trips per day without taking into account any new or slated growth in our area. Of course, the roads can handle the car trips. Roads can always handle one more car. We can sit in traffic for one more light. It's the quality of life that's being choked. We are tired, too, of developers continually trying pushing developments that are not in the character and keeping of our community. Please stop using the guise of OSC to tell us how they will preserve green space when we know it's just a density gain and a density bonus on land that is not developable due to floodplain. In the case of Z101, this developer is asking to set aside land that has no significance. It is floodplain. It is utility. It is a cemetery. Now I ask you, who wants a cemetery in their open space? In addition, the STIF states that the future homeowners must take care of this cemetery. What little land is remaining in West Cobb just just not, excuse me, it's just not, there's no justification for it to be a density bonus or for upzoning. It is not in character and keeping with our community, and it ignores the blatant fact that our infrastructure is and continues to be insufficient. It does not represent a take when you allow a landowner to develop his or her land at the zoning that is allowed under the land use plan, especially when those properties around it include adjacent farmland and large lots. It is just responsible development, which is what the citizens of West Cobb are asking you to do. Please deny Z101. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. We had several other people who were sworn in to speak. Do we have any other speakers? We are completely out of time. Do you have anything new to add? If you do it very quickly, we'll take one more speaker. What's your name, please?
My name is Bill Stolz. I lived at 735 Pinewood Drive for 44 years. I used to come into Marietta in 15 minutes. Now, at 7 o'clock in the morning, it takes me an hour and 15 to an hour and 20 minutes. I do not let this man build, but I want him to build on R30. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're going to close this portion. Let's see, this is in District 1. Skip, I believe that's yours. You want to handle our discussion, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I disagree with the staff just slightly when they say that this parcel will support R20 kind of density. When I look at the map around this and I look at the densities of the subdivisions, I see 0.66 units per acre, I see 1.11 units per acre, I see to the north, I see 1.13 up to 2.2 up in Calumet West, I see 1.32 in Burnt Hickory Registry, and then I see the larger lots that James Watkins, larger properties that James Watkins talked about. So I think for that reason alone, this parcel screams to me for a little bit lower density than an R20 based density. When I look at the infrastructure, in particular the schools and the traffic, and Melissa just talked about both of those. Harrison is under capacity right now because they just added a new 9th grade academy in the last couple of years. But the Due West Elementary and the middle school are both over capacity right now. Whatever we do here is going to aggravate that. And I understand that Cobb County School District redistricts from time to time to accommodate those changes. But at some point, we have to reflect the fact that it's been reported to us that 2 schools out of the 3 that this would feed are over capacity. So it's the character of the area in terms of density and the traffic just screams to me that this needs to stay as a fundamental zoning at R30. However, I disagree, I believe, but I want to see a plan. I'd like to see a plan that maybe proves me wrong. I think that this parcel does scream out to be open space community. It's got all of the wetlands over to the west side. It does have the cemetery. My understanding is the county procedure is to preserve cemeteries. Is that right, John? Yeah. The Civil War trench, which was shown in the central northern part of the site plan that we saw a little while ago, is there, and I take it on face value that that's in good condition. I haven't seen it. I haven't walked this property, but I would like to see that. But I take it on face value that probably needs to be preserved. So those are at least 3 things that cry out for open space community. If we just allow this to be developed as R30, we're going to get 76, 77, maybe 78, possibly even 80 lots, depending on how creative the developer is, because there's no constraint other than 30,000 square feet per lot that the developer has to follow, plus setbacks and so forth, in designing the overall plan for a parcel. So We don't know exactly how many lots it would be under R30, but it's going to be in the 75 to 80 range, probably. Many of those lots are going to have good-sized portions of them down in the wetlands, which can't be built on, but they're going to be they're going to be part of individual lots, which homeowners tend to start to acquire over time. Even though they're not supposed to do anything with it, they will start to acquire it. So this, to me, fits the bill of the requirements, the intent and the spirit of what an open space community subdivision is. So, you know, I have a whole bunch of other issues, but I would like to see this recast as an R30 open space community at the lower end of the density that would allow. The open space community, R30 open space community numbers are 1.1 units per acre as a starting point, and 1.25 units per acre at the upper end if you qualify by putting away 50% of this total acreage as open space. That would yield at the upper end something like 87 lots. That's too many in my mind. I think that something closer to 1.1 units per acre, if they go with the 41.2% open space that's in the current plan, that would qualify for one lot over the 1.1, and that would be 78 lots. And I happen to think that an R30 OSC design that has 78 lots in it could be interesting to see, and we can judge whether we think it's the right thing or not for this parcel. There have been, in a lot of my discussions with people in the community, there's been a lot of concern about there are other open space community subdivisions that have been approved in the last couple of years where we've had some problems. I would like to see a parcel grading plan philosophy that will help to preserve as much of the natural topography of this property and the woods and so forth, the natural features, as possible. I cite the subdivision that I happen to live in. John, it's one that your son Kevin was a lawyer for. It's Woodbridge at Hamilton Lake. And the way that was developed, and I know it's expensive to do this, or more expensive, I think, but the way that was developed, it was developed in phases. A section of road was opened, it was graded, it was paved, curbs were put in, and then individual lots were just sitting there until they were ready for development. And then the developer came along when he decided he was going to build another house. He cut down the trees in that lot in an area large enough to be able to operate, to put in the foundation and the basement and so forth, but to not, with the intent of preserving as many of the trees as possible behind the houses and between the houses to a certain extent. And then when that section of the development was completed or nearing completion, they expanded by opening another phase and repeating that same process. I know that's expensive, more expensive than just clear cutting, but I think a lot of people in West Cobb feel like they've been burned by the clear cutting, intentional and unintentional, through mistakes or whatever that has happened. The second thing is the home architecture. I would like to see a stipulation in there that protects, that really defines well the three-sided architecture so that we don't, for example, end up with three-sided hardy plank that, would look like a company town. We have an example of something like that not too far from where I live, and I'm hoping it's going to change, but it's not very attractive right now. I don't see too much with too much discussion in the STIP letter, and I haven't had discussions, John, with you on buffers, but it just strikes me that we need to have a more defined, well-defined buffer along Burnt Hickory Road. There's the power line easement along the east side of this parcel that borders James Watkins' property that's that can't be built on, that's down in the ravine anyway. And so I'm not sure how you buffer that, but that needs to be taken care of. I think in short, where I'm going is I think this plan needs to be recast as an R30 OSC. It needs to be shopped with the community to see if the community is in agreement, which I think it can come into agreement with, that this is going to fit into the look and feel and character of this part of Burnt Hickory Road. And I would like to see us, see that happen over the next month, 2 months, however long it takes to accomplish that, so that we can then come back with a plan, hopefully, that satisfies the vast majority of the people who live in this immediate area. That's kind of where I'm coming from. So with that kind of discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
I'd like to make
Unless
a
there's
couple
discussion.
comments first. You know, I don't know that it needs to go all the way down to an R30 OSC. I don't have a big problem with the density because I kept it well below an R20 OSC density. You know, it could go up to 1.92 and they're at 1.43. I do think they need to rework the plan to get the lots that have parts of them within the floodplain out. I think it appeared like there may be some lots that have the back of their lots in the power line easement. I think that easement should be totally within the open space and not in individual lots, and things like that. But I don't really, I do think that this is a much lower density, and if you look either way down the road, there's much higher density. I realize there's a stretch in this road where it's much lower because it hasn't really been developed yet. But 1.43 to me doesn't seem too high. If getting everything out of the floodplain and that they lose a few lots, that would be okay with me. But to go down in the 70s with lots, to me, is not necessary. So those are my comments.
I agree with the comment that you need to have your bigger lots, especially on the outside perimeter, especially on Burnt Hickory Road. And what I'm seeing in the current plan does not offer that. I think that point was well made, and I totally agree with that. An R30 consideration might offer that opportunity so that we can put some bigger lots up there, even bigger than 30,000 square feet, and put the rest of them interior at R30 standards. So I would agree with your assessment, and I think an R30 OSC might work very well. I happen to like OSC. Right. OSC does work most of the time. This is an ideal location for OSC. The preservation of green space is always something I like to see, and I like R30 better than R20 for this. Anyone else?
Me. I think given what it's surrounding, it's almost like a pocket because you have the school and everything surrounding it. So you're not introducing, and when you look down the road, you're not introducing a new category here. You've got R20, you've got R30. And estate lots are really nice, and we all wish we could live on estate lots, but we all can't. And I think the R20 with the open space is a good concept. It's not high density. I know a lot of the emails I got stated it was high density. 1.43 is not high density. That's low density. But I think this plan could be improved upon because I think in keeping with the spirit of the OSC, the lots need to be enlarged to 30,000 that would be adjacent to the 30,000 square feet. I think we could do that, and then the interior lots could be the R20, but it does need some tweaking, but I really don't have a problem with the R20, and I don't really have a problem with the density. The density will come down if you increase the lots on the outside there, adjacent to I think it's the Watkins property, adjacent to that property. If you increase the lot size there, which we have done in subdivisions in the past on an OSC. So the concept I agree with, but I think the plan could use some work.
Anybody else?
The only thing I can add is that I think the OSC option is the only way to try to preserve the look and feel that I think the community is looking for, because an R30 lot is not a rural look and feel. And if they developed this as just a straight R30 subdivision, the way it's zoned, you're not even gonna know the difference between how it looks on Burnt Hickory
Exactly right.
from an R20 subdivision. It's gonna look the same, and there would be no stipulations. If it were my project and everything worked the way I wanted it to, I would put some of the open space up front at the entrance, so you have kind of a pastoral entrance associated with the trench line. And that might not be playground open space, but it would be view shed, and it might be something that would please the community as well. So that's just an idea.
And the large lots adjacent. Things, I think it could be a good, just rambling away. It could be a good plan by doing.
Getting hungry.
cooking. And I think by holding it, we could still get input from the neighbors. The neighbors have well comments, good presentation by the opposition. But I do think that this plan could work with just some more input into it.
Okay, so I'm ready to make a motion?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we hold this for at least 30 days until our December 6th, is that it, the next hearing? Until our December 6th hearing, to allow the applicant the opportunity to go back and recast this. I would like to see it as an R30 OSC. I'd like to see an R30, since it's existing R30 zoning right now, the OSC ordinance requires, but I'd like to see it as well, an R30 straight plan on this parcel, so that we can all see what that looks like, but also have that as part of the foundation for what the density, number should be under OSC. So my motion is that we hold this for 30 days until the next Planning Commission hearing.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion? Let's all register our vote, please. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to hold it. We'll see what kind of new plan comes forward, and we'll hold this for 30 days until the December hearing cycle. That it?
Mr. Chairman, that moves you to your other business agenda where you are going to consider adopting dates and times for your planning commission zoning hearings for year 2017.
Okay,
Make a motion that we approve the calendar year 2017 as presented.
okay. Any
I'll second.
changes? Got a second? All in favor of approving the calendar? Okay, let's also approve or consider the October 24th Planning Commission hearing minutes. Get a motion? Second, Skip, right?
I'll second.
Okay, approve the minutes.
Thank you.
All in favor? Okay, got it. Anything else? Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Today.